Hey everybody, it's 7 o'clock. We're already in open session because we had closed session before the meeting. Allison, can you do a roll call?
Shalakas? Here. Lyon?
Yes.
Phelps?
Here.
Rodriguez? Here. Sherpy?
Here.
Westhab? Here. Fletcher? Here.
Okay. And if everybody could please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on the agenda is the recognition of public comments. We have several of them tonight. And let's see. Well, when I call your name, please go to the podium, state your name, and begin your statement. Allison has a timer on the projector, and you have 5 minutes. We're asking you to refrain from making any personal comments regarding any individual. And that's it. First person is Mr. Rob Bennett.
Thank you. I asked permission to be able to do some handouts, and he agreed it was okay. Dr. Allen.
What is passing on going to start your presentation?
Yeah, 5 minutes quick, and you bet. Not at all. Basically, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about why my offer on the Nielsen School was at the low rate it was. He was advertised for sale, and I for a bid option, and I opted not to bid on it. The first one, the second one, same, and the third, I started researching it because of I own the building and houses the Head Start building and the kids and stuff like that, and I thought it'd be a great program for them, and the ROE and everything else. Now, on the handout I give you is, I did a lot of due diligence to figure out why and how my offer should be. And you don't need me to read it to you, but with my 5013C organization that I opted not to make my offer to that, I would like to see if we get back on the the tax roll. And I met with the assessor, and we agreed how we would come up with it at the $255,260 number, and then we would have somewhere in the neighborhood would have done it the other tax roll for about $800,000. And you can see line item number 5 of the roof that is shot. It's $700,000 to repair it. Sprinkler system was $250,000. Asbestos abatement was $150,000 and $160,000. So basically, to start the project, I'd have $1,210,000 in the project. That doesn't include the new HVAC, et cetera, the wiring, flooring, et cetera. But my two tenants that I'd like to work with on is the Head Start program and the ROE. And I'd like to have an environment that's much better than what we have for them now. And what I can only speak on the Head Start program, the traffic, the pattern, the environment for the kids. I like to see them in more of a school setting than I would a building that we rehabbed 20 years ago. And the ROE program, I don't know a whole lot about their programs, but I would like to see the kids, the young adults, be in a better environment and a better setting in that whole complex. Now, that being said, I have no leases in place with anybody, but I needed to let you know it wasn't being disrespectful on the low offer. It was low, but I just want to tell you face to face of why and how I got to that number. Okay? Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next speaker is Miss Amanda Vest.
I guess I come today because over the weekend, along with being to a couple of events recently, I've seen a great deal of hypocrisy. We continue to mask our children every single day, yet events are being held where there's 360 participants and no one is masked. These are teachers, these are faculty members, these are administration, board members, and they're going to events that are for the high school or fundraisers or whatever, and I know they're pertinent, and I know they need to happen. However, how do you continue to mask our children every day when you don't live by your same rules? I don't understand. I don't understand why I have to sign a paper for my kid to take an ibuprofen, yet you feel the need to put a medical device on him every single day. What is your intention after this is said and done for the anxiety that you have created? How are we going to get these children back on track? I come today because I want answers. I'm tired of seeing it posted all over the place. I'm tired of getting roundabout answers when I call administration and ask flat out, why is it that one school can come to a basketball game and do not mask, yet our own students are masked with them down around their face as if that works? I'm wearing mine wrong? Absolutely. Because you don't make the intention to have anyone else wear them correctly. Yet we continue to do this every single day to our kids. I have a pivotal junior high student who is having trouble with what his world is going to look like when half of his face is not covered. I'm tired of it, and I want answers.
Okay, next speaker is Ms. Jen Flute.
So I'm Jennifer Fluke. I am an alum of Carl Sandburg and Knox College. I did attend Galesburg High School. I am not an alum of them due to some of the issues that we have here with inconsistent treatment that I've seen then, and I still continue to see with my child now. He did not wear a mask all day Monday. No concern was brought up. Nobody mentioned it. On Tuesday, there was a concern. He was took to the office and was told to go home. He was kicked out, was not allowed to be there. They forced him to put a mask on until we came to pick him up, in which case there was 2 of the Galesburg adult leaders, employees, from here to there, speaking without their masks appropriately on in front of him for an activity that he was getting kicked out of. How do you explain that to a high schooler? You're getting kicked out of school for something that they're doing directly in front of you. So, another example would be school events. Every picture in every paper you can see from school events, the masks are not worn appropriately. Masks are not beneficial if they are not worn, if they are worn on the chin, below the nose, if they're pulled up and down to drink and eat, if you're not washing your hands after every time you touch them, they're not beneficial. If they gap on the side, they're not beneficial. This is clearly not enforced regularly. But forcing a kid to leave school, even though it's potentially illegal at this point, we seem to be okay within the school district. I work in the medical field every day. Yes, we are very overwhelmed. However, this is partially due because of mass fear. This is also partially due because of irrational political mandates, which have forced us into limited staffing for the medical professional, and also into families having to drive their entire family, all their kids, to medical appointments to be tested for every sneeze and headache and whichever thing that the nurse sends them home for, just to be able to keep those kids in school, even if it is not COVID. Mandates due to emergency is the reason that we have these. However, COVID's been here for 2 years. We've had vaccines for a year. We have the treatments that are approved by the FDA. Scared parents have ways to treat and take precautions for their beliefs without forcing every child in the school to be quarantined. Okay, COVID has killed 1% of all-cause mortality of kids under 17 per the CDC. Our high school kids are more likely to die driving to school than from getting COVID there. Our high school kids are more troubled with mental health issues, which have gone up from 1 in 5 kids to 1 in 3 kids. Our suicide rate is the second leading cause of death for kids this age. This is what this is causing. And this should be addressed. That's all I got.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Molester. Apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Molester, Dr. Kluge's stepdad. I want to start off by explaining why I'm here tonight. I went to the school on February 8th because he did not want to comply with mask mandate. My wife Jennifer just explained that the day before he went all day without a mask and nobody said anything to him. It wasn't important. But then they made him do that. So I was called to the school. When I showed up, she told you the results that went on there. I went back and forth with a couple of the officials at the school, stating the case that on February 4th, Judge Grisham issued a temporary restraining order blocking the enforcement of Executive Orders 18, 22, 24, 25, and the IDPH and the ISDE emergency rules for forcing kids to wear masks. I am aware that the local district, nor myself, are not directly named in the lawsuit. Those 3 officials that I talked to that day made that pretty clear to me. So with that said, we thought it was just the best thing to give them the opportunity to fix the problem at hand instead of making a big deal out of it. Allow them to review the lawsuit, review the laws, regulations, statutes involved in the emergency rule case. If the time is taken to review in detail, with all that information, you will see the reason of proof and the process was manipulated by all entities involved to push through an emergency rule. If any entity does not follow the process of rulemaking, the fact is, the rule is null and void. Moving on to the issue, it is in the U.S. Constitution, the Illinois Constitution, and in the IDPH regulations, and they state it very clear that Dante has the right to due process, which starts as follows. He has the right to refuse to comply. Once that takes place, lost my place here, give me a second. He shall be granted by law the right of due process, which he cannot be excluded from free public education until the conclusion has been made by a nonpartisan party that he has to comply with this rule. This itself is complete violation of his civil rights. The question of irreparable harm should also be a huge concern to all involved. This is also a fact that we simply cannot fix the damage done over a complete mishandling of the rules addressing COVID-19. So if the above statement falls on deaf ears, then our choice is simple. We will seek legal representation, and we will take the steps necessary to ensure that our son continues to receive the right of free public education. In closing, I ask that the parties involved these questions. Are we truly doing everything we can in the best interest of each and every kid in our school? Are we taking a look at the lessons that we're being taught to the future of this community? Are we teaching our kids integrity above everything else? Are we still doing the job we set out to do, which was for the betterment of all kids? Don't we want our kids to question everything by using critical thinking, or do we want them to just accept everything they are told? The time is now to move forward and make the changes that we all desire. In final, 39 states are not subject to mask mandates. Reference wire points. Why? Why is 39 states not having this? That should be the question for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Patrick Sherman.
6 foot away. Oh, it's coming off. Gonna start with thanking Mr. Hawkins, Miss Ritchie. We got that whole situation that I spoke to you guys about last month, kind of under control. Now, I did ask the school board members if you guys would all take a tour, sit down, speak with the kids, see what we can do about the safety of the students. The fights have went down. They are trying at the high school, but I would like to see, and I'm gonna send emails out this week, and I've already talked to Mr. Hawkins about it. Maybe if we could meet once a month with, try to get as many students as we can, good students, bad students, whatever we wanna call them, from a whole diversity group, and see what we can do to stop maybe these stupid TikTok challenges and all the craziness that we got going on at the school, and we can make these kids feel a little safer. Even though the fights ain't going on, the kids still feel threatened because they might have said something wrong and they didn't even get a chance to apologize. So I wanna see if we can work together as a group, students, parents, community, make these high schoolers and Churchill kids feel a little safer. Second, this is bullcrap. I'm gonna be out front. CDC says they're crap. They said the cloth masks don't work, paper masks don't work. I understand old JP still sending $21 million to the school district. Instead of buying buildings, why didn't we provide the N95 mask that the CDC's always recommended? Because that wasn't the cheap way, right? Awesome. I got 4 at the high school and then 1 at King. The 7-year-old is probably the smartest kid out of all my kids. I love my kids, but at 7 years old, he's farther than any of the others. Now his teacher keeps sending us stuff saying his vocabulary is behind, he can't read, she can't understand his words. Well, you can't understand words when a 7-year-old who's never been without a mask in school can't enunciate his words, and you can't see him enunciate his words, and he can't see you enunciate his words. Why? Because we're still wearing this stupid stuff. I just not exactly sure what we can do here. I was at all 3 basketball games last week. I bet I couldn't have found 40 people wearing masks in the whole building, including staff, including law enforcement. Why are we doing it? 520 other school districts have been on board with cutting the mask. If a child feels that it's necessary, then let them. We can make it optional. Give these kids and these parents the choice. Like I said, I got 5. I bet 2 of them, maybe just 1, will still wear a mask because that's what makes them feel safe. But the science isn't showing that these are doing any good at all. I mean, we spread more germs with the hands. How many of us have already been up here? Did anybody come sanitize this? We've all touched it. And then we're going to go back and we're going to touch our face. Excuse my language, but we're half-assing. If you're going to be on board, do it all the way. We're not. We're just doing what looks good on paper. So I'm going to ask that we take a vote, get rid of these masks. If not, vote comes up in 2023 and 2025 for board members, and I'd hate to be on the wrong side of history when we start voting people off. Also, if we don't, I'm going to start asking for resignations starting next board meeting. Have a good night.
Next speaker is Nick. Again, apologize.
Hi, my name is Nick. Thanks for inviting us forum. I really appreciate what you all have done to hold the ship together the past couple of years. If I were in your place, I think I would use my mind. And I really appreciate our teachers who've tried to make learning fun through an unendurable period. So God bless them. I wanted to share an idea about slowing things down for our kids in 2 ways. First, in terms of the way in which a day is packed overfull. And second, with respect to Chromebooks. With respect to schedule, packing the days, I learned about how overfull a day could be when I went to Lombard in the fall to get my kid into 5th grade, and I thought I was dropping him off at high school. I learned that he would have something, correct me if I'm wrong, something like 8 43-minute sessions with 3-minute intervals in between. It seemed mad to me. I didn't understand how a child could pick up so many things so quickly. And it's been a little bit since I have been in 5th grade. Maybe it was just me, times change. So when Principal Hutton invited me to join the school improvement group, I checked around and found out that teachers agreed. There isn't a lot of time to get all this done. And if you think about it, 43-minute period, you get a child in settled 5 minutes. How much substance is there? 35 minutes? Before you have to truck them off to the next period. Our boy in 5th grade, I doubt he goes to the bathroom a day. He's challenged to finish his lunch. And so it's a race to get taught many things quickly. I wonder how effective it is. I could see if the percent of students who got the grade level was 100%. I could see if it was 75%. But correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if even 50% of the kids get to grade level when they go through Lumba. This is not a criticism of Principal Hutton, who I think is doing great and has high morale there, surprisingly. So I just encourage the board to think about slowing things down, maybe doing fewer things more slowly. Second area, Chromebook. I spoke with a member of the board recently who told me, Nick, if I had my way, I'd dig a big pit and I'd throw the Chromebooks into it. But, this person said, we paid for them, which is interesting. What I want to encourage is that maybe you do a cost-benefit analysis in terms other than just economics, and think about the educational value. Are we getting in more for these devices, which our students might not be ready for? Then we're losing, I would say. Find a way to measure it. You probably know studies, I've written to Dr. Asplund about this, studies that show the benefit of handwriting over keyboard. There's one as recent as 2020 out of the University of Norway. Shows brain activity in 11-year-olds, my son's 11, is greater, it's no contest between handwriting over keyboard. That's just one measure. You could find others probably. And if we don't throw them into a pit, although I hope you do throw them into a pit, at least some training in how the brain works, dopamine, something, impulse control. My son, who loves the outside, reading, playing music, is challenged with this device to stay on task. Just 5 minutes, Dad. I go to Super Mario. It'll just be 5 minutes, and before you know it, 25 minutes. Multiply that by, I don't know how many times a day when I'm not around, or his mother's around, right? By the number of students who go to Lombard. So the moral of the story is, maybe fewer things slowly. Habits of mind over superficial skills, I would say. So, again, thank you for this forum. I appreciate it. Thanks for thinking about it.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Mr. Deb Martin.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. My name's Deb Marty. Currently, I don't have students in District 205, the actual high school or at elementary education. My grandkids go to Costa, and I'm really curious how District 205 has determined to maintain the mask mandate when that mandate was actually challenged in court and decided to be unconstitutional and a gross power served by the governor of the state. 147 school districts filed that lawsuit, and it was deemed viable, and those 147 districts have done away with the mandate. Their students are improving rapidly, smiles are returning, and grades are going up. And I'm concerned that the two districts that we have, District 205 and Rova, decided to keep the mandate, and because it's almost a punishment to go to school, and we're struggling terribly with children emotionally. Their grades are falling, and their attitudes and personalities are actually being changed by someone deciding that this is the way they should live. Two of my own grandkids, with the mask mandate that was enforced for a while, a while back, And Costa decided to go with the 147, and they made the masks optional. The kids on the blocks that go to school, they all got together and had an absolute cheering section because they don't have to wear masks. They don't have to sit in class, not breathe properly, not see the teacher properly, not speak properly, and have bullies that you cannot understand what they're saying. Kids actually bully kids more with a mask on because it's like being a robber. You're not seen. You can't hear what they're saying. You can't understand what they're saying, and you can't see what they're saying. So my grandkids, in the last week since that mandate was overruled in court, have been absolutely, totally different in school. Going to school, playing on the playgrounds, playing sports, and it really bothers me that our district chose to stick with a mandate that was deemed unlawful. I don't know how you can sleep at night knowing that you're punishing children for going to school. I don't know how you can do it. Additionally, with ROGA, they had a student like this young, I'm sorry, I don't know where that gentleman worked. His son was asked to leave school because he refused to wear a mask. And a bunch of parents got together and a bunch of citizens got together, and we went up there and we protested across from the school, saying, unmask our kids, it's unlawful. And there have been 7 junior high and high school kids that have left school because they will not sit there with a mask on. Is this what we want to happen? We have to make education and school fun again. It was fun to go to high school. It was fun to go to junior high school. Dances, proms, basketball games, all that stuff that makes learning fun. I challenge you, please look at what you're doing and really think about how we're harming kids. It's mind-boggling to me. And I want to thank all the parents that came up here tonight and talked about how their kids are being affected. Because it's the parents' choice that's important, not your guys's, not you saying you sit there with a screen on and a mask and try to learn. I bet you don't do it. I mean, if you went to college right now and you have to sit there in a mask and a plastic thing over your face, it's disgusting. And what we're doing to our children is disgusting. Thanks.
Okay, that concludes public comments. Now we're moving on to presentations to the board. Our first presentation, I believe, is Becky Hutton, presenting on Lombard Middle.
Good evening, members of the board. We are extremely excited. We feel Lombard Middle School has an incredible opportunity. It's the first school where the entire district, obviously kids come together. We do at times still feel like we are flying and building the airplane at the same time, but we are really excited in spite of all these challenges. Today we're going to share our Lombard story and the identity that we are trying to create. So again, our theme this year is going the extra degree, and most importantly, going the extra degree for kids. This is our focus, and it is a very difficult one. We're trying to go away from compliance and really focus on creating that climate of engagement. So the staff has worked very hard on kind of identifying and defining what that means. And then today you're going to get to see some snapshots of what we believe we are doing to accomplish this. And then I wanted to make sure because in a little bit you're going to see our story. And sometimes people will kind of question, like, what does this story really mean? Well, what matters most in raising student achievement? John Hattie actually says that collective teacher efficacy actually has the greatest impact. John Hattie did a lot of studies and so showed the effect size that if we can get individuals to truly believe the impact they can have on student achievement, we can raise that. So at Lombard, that is what we're trying to do, is truly believe that every single individual from bus drivers to our custodian to myself to secretaries, that every single one of us has the impact to make a difference in a child's life. And so we're going to go ahead and let you see just the incredible things. Like I said, in spite of all the challenges, we truly see, I get to be in the trenches, seeing the incredible things happening in District 205, and I feel very honored to be a part of it.
On the lunch menu for today is a barbecue. I can follow the rules. I can follow. So you speak to my world, all that shit. Today is a new day. A day I from the store card. Be kind, show pride, and celebrate who I am. We are Lombard.
So what you just saw there at the end, we felt in order to come together as a culture, I noticed early on with 600 kids, students didn't even really know who I was. Because of the pandemic, I couldn't be in front doing assemblies. So we started doing just daily announcements where we could do some celebrations, but also keep our students and staff just remembering our high expectations of our ready math minutes. And so we just kind of turn things into days of the week has a different theme, and our staff and students work together again to create that all-in culture. So I wanted you to just take a look at kind of what we do on a daily basis. But some of you might ask, like, why does this matter? We truly believe creating this culture where we are trying to, again, build that all-in. We have seen some tremendous gains with our Tier 1. So if you look there, Tier 1 is where we want to get our students. And yes, we feel continuous improvement is our goal, but one of the issues we do need to do is obviously try to decrease that Tier 3 but we do feel like we're making gains in the right direction. Tier 2, those students are starting to move over to Tier 1 with 5th grade, and obviously we just want to keep that, again, continuous improvement. And so in our homerooms, it's an entire all-in, whether you're art teacher, we're all working on trying to do those My Path minutes. And then this is a look at our 6th grade. And so again, I truly believe at Lombard right now, we're trying to, again, build those positive culture. It starts with the leader. And so I have some incredible staff here. A lot of their classrooms were on display there, so I'm going to let them take an opportunity just to share some highlights since they're the one in the trenches putting the work in.
Hi, I'm Barb Baker, 6th grade STEAM. It's an elective at Lombard, for those of you who didn't know. And so basically one of the things I love that we're going to talk a little bit about is homeroom. So it's so important that you build that relationship with your students so that they feel supported, feel almost like a family. And so I love having that small group first thing in the morning, and we kind of added some minutes at the end. So we have this homeroom kind of at the beginning and at the end, which is a great opportunity to check in with the student before school starts and kind of start their day on the right path, and then ask them at the end, how was your day? What kinds of things can we work on and kind of build together? So it's important to build family, and what I love most about it is that students then with even iReady Minutes or Sweet 360 are anxious to show me that they've accomplished their goals or that they're getting close to meeting it, and how can we work together to support one another. We also take time to kind of do some team building and reflect on that. Not only does it carry over in homeroom, but the benefits of that come then in your classroom. That student doesn't want to disappoint you because we've invested in each other and we have a family bond. And so those are crucial, not only with students, but with staff. When you start to create this kind of culture and climate, you'll see success and you kind of buy in together in forms of supporting one another and lifting each other up.
Hi, I'm Danielle Cano. I'm our family engagement specialist at Lombard as I finish my master's in school counseling. I feel that my unique position this year really embodies the all-in model. I get to dabble in a little bit of everything in our building, which means I also get to interact with every single student that walks through our doors. Along with that, I get to work with all of the staff. I am the one that gets to really promote that engagement, the engagement within our staff, the engagement within our students, and in our community. I get to help celebrate the math games and the iReady shout-outs, and I kind of run our Sweet 360 program and promote that through our homerooms, whether it's doing a whole class lesson with our homerooms or sending teacher resources throughout the week that they can utilize across all their sections to tie in with our castle competency and the theme that week that we're doing. I get to do student of the week pictures and celebrate at lunch. And I get to work with Ms. Condre and our attendants and building those connections with those families to get those bodies to school. And I really get to embody that all-in model and take part in a little bit of all of it and help make those connections, like Barb said, in our homerooms and at lunch, and just make that cohesive feeling at Lombard Middle School.
My name is Kristen L. Kane, and I'm a 6th grade math teacher at Lombard. So math is kind of my baby, that's kind of my kids, those are my scores, those are our kids' scores. So when I say they're our scores, because we have used that all-in model this year. So our homeroom teachers have also kind of jumped on and tried to help us because our minutes are limited in our classrooms. So those gains that you see though, the green there, if you look at tier 3, that high risk, the yellow is where we were at in the fall. And then the green is where we're at in the winter. So you can see that those kids, the high-risk kids is dropping down. And then kind of shift over to the tier 2 there. The yellow was where we were at in the fall, but then it went higher on the green because those kids from tier 3 moved to tier 2. And then the tier 1, you can still see that we're making gains there as well. So it's exciting to make those gains, but it's not just the math teacher making the math scores move. It's not just the kids doing the work, it's everybody at the school. Some of the things that we are doing in math and ELA is we are meeting as grade level teams to kind of analyze our plans during our common plan time. So that means our common plan time is actually our own independent plan time, but we are meeting together to kind of analyze. Did curriculum work over the summer? Are we staying on course with those curriculum maps? Those gaps from when we were remote, how are we closing those gaps? How are we fixing those things? Are there skills the kids are using? So we're able to have those discussions and figure out what we need to do to help students learn. Are we on track with those curriculum amounts? Can we keep up? I mean, that is the big question. So I'm thankful that our homerooms have bought into helping us with that task and providing some independent instruction with that. We are using both the iReady math data, we are using what we see in the classroom, we are watching students collaborate, we are taking both our formal assessment pieces of work that the kids do, not only that, but what we see the kids performing in the classroom to make those decisions. So, kind of like to wrap things up here, that all-in model, we have those 42, 43-minute instructional periods, which are quick. So it's difficult to meet every individual student's needs and reteach those MyPath lessons or that instructional time when they're in red and yellow. They really need like a 10-minute intervention with a teacher. So we rely on our interventionists, we rely on our math teacher. Everybody has to work together to get those things met. That iReady MyPath is instruction on the computer. We're doing that in homeroom. And then math class, we're doing things in small groups. We're doing things in tiered instruction. I have different groups going on all the time in my classroom as far as, okay, these kids are working on a task or activity that's a sort task, and then these kids are doing the direct lesson. And then these kids are working with me in small groups because they need a challenge, or these kids are working with me because they need some extra help. So those differentiated instruction within small groups is essential, but I think it's really important to know that not only am I teaching math and Mr. Sharp teaching math down the hall, and Ms. Jefferson teaching math in 6th grade and our 5th grade teaching math, but we're all teaching math in our homeroom classes as well. So it's nice that we're in that all-in model. So I hope that our staff continues to do that and support each other, and I think that's what makes Lombard special. That's all I got.
And we know that we have a long ways to go and to continue that continuous improvement, and every single day getting better, and every single day getting staff to understand that every single interaction with a student matters. But I know tomorrow we're celebrating 100 days of in-person learning. So I know as a leader, I'm just pumped about that because there are truly incredible things happening in District 205. We'd like to open it up for any questions.
I don't think anybody has any questions, but I would like to thank you for coming and presenting. It's very informative. I appreciate it.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make comments. Myself and Member Besser got a chance to come to Lombard today, and I just want to say, and we missed you, Miss Kane. We got to see Mr. Sharp and have the conversation about math today, and you guys were able to acknowledge that, there are some gap issues, but it's stuff that you guys are absolutely talking about how you can help, lessen the gap, which is so important because that is something that we've been talking about here as a board. So I'm glad that's something you are absolutely working on. I do want to acknowledge that there's some great work happening there. We had an opportunity to go into Miss Jefferson's room today, and remind me what it was that she was modeling in that class, because King School came and modeled that for us.
Yeah.
What was that she was doing?
Yeah, just to highlight Mrs. Hawkins and King for that Kagan Cooperative Learning.
Right.
You got to witness a 6th grade teacher
Correct.
Engage her students in that type of learning.
Correct. So I thought that was really important because one thing we often think is that when students are in the lower grades often modeling certain things that we don't think that older kids can model it as well. But I'm telling you, Ms. Jefferson was on point with how she was able to engage with students, and they were doing it so well. And we were able to, even engage students while they were doing it, and they thought we were teachers too, so it was perfect. I mean, honestly, and it was so great, honestly, today, because the kids, yeah, and the kids are so encouraging with each other, no matter what school we were in, and it was just great to see at the end of the day. So I just want to say, keep working hard, keep doing what you're doing, and keep moving forward.
I'd like to invite any of you to come to my room anytime. I'm more than willing to have visitors and spectators and observations. I'd also like to extend, if you'd like to be a part of our announcements, which are really fun, and you sort of become a celebrity when you get out. My students love the announcements. They like to, see their name or see their picture. But if you want to say, hey, Zephyr's morning announcements are coming at you, anything, we'll do a quick shoot of that. Just let us know. But they would love, it's just fun for them, and it's something my students look forward to. So we arrive at 8:40, but my homeroom starts at 8:50. My students are there wanting to start before. And so I open that door and we get in, they're like, start the announcement. It's just, it's kind of a big deal, and it's a great way to start to celebrate and kind of revisit a few things to get ready for the day. And then sometimes we talk about it, or, so it brings us in, and it's that urgency of, we want to know what's going on. And so if you'd love to make an appearance, you kind of become a big deal, just so you know. Just let us know. We'd be more than happy to find a way to get you to take a part of it. Say the lunch menu, anything.
My kid is heavy for that too.
Before she goes to school and watches the announcements
Yes,
every morning.
yes.
Audrey loves it.
Yes,
She
there
eats
is
her
so-
breakfast and watches the
So you've
announcements
heard
every
the
morning
tunes and the
before she even
music?
comes. Yep. So she knows what you're already gonna say, so she can do her other stuff while the announcements are.
I love her.
So yes,
Yes.
she looks forward to it every day.
And I post them in Google Classroom, so
Yes.
students are willing to show their parents, which is a great kind of snapshot of the day, you
Or
talk
what's
about
for
the
lunch,
or what's
or
for
if it's her
lunch.
friend's birthday, or so when they
Absolutely.
see their friend in the hallway, she can say happy birthday before school starts. So yes, they love it.
A lot of credit goes to Ms. Hutton for that, but the students do enjoy it, and it is kind of a fun little piece, and it's a great talking point, so much going on.
Well, it's routine for them. When those music things come on, they know what's coming next. If that's what you saw, was the routine that happens every morning. So, and they look forward to that, and that way they know what their day's gonna feel like and who gets shouted out, so.
And when you talk about the homeroom being a family, I will 100% completely agree with that. My child feels like the 10 kids in her homeroom are like, that's it, those are her friends. So she eats lunch with them, she sees them at the beginning of the day, she sees them at the end of the day, like, those are her friends. So she knows that she can talk to this person about this, or they can help her with this. So the homeroom family thing is definitely clicking, I love it.
Great, that makes us feel good that
Yes.
we're doing something.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Okay. Moving on to our next presentation, I do need to make a reminder to the spectators in the gallery that we do have a mandatory mask policy, and if you don't want to wear a mask, then you're invited to leave.
Absolutely. But you take these things and put them where the sun don't shine. It's against the law.
Exactly.
Parents, you gotta stand up for your kids.
Okay, our next presentation is from Ms. Luann Staben.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Luann Statham. I'm the Assistant Director of Special Ed. And tonight I have Randy Burgess with me. She is a teacher, a special ed teacher at Guilford High School, and we're going to give you some information about our STEP program because I don't think it gets talked about enough. And we have an exciting new coffee shop at GHS, which Mrs. Burgess is going to talk about. But I'm just going to give you some information about what the STEP program is, and then she's going to talk about common grounds. The STEP program, STEP stands for Secondary Transition Experience Program, and it's for high school students with disabilities. It's a joint effort between the school district and the Department of Rehabilitation Services. Most of our funding comes from them, but not all of it. We do have local funds that cover some of our costs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The students must have a documented disability and IEP to qualify to be in our STEP program. And it focuses on, we focus on the students that we think are employable, but who are having maybe trouble finding a job, possibly because of their disability, and maybe they're just lacking some workplace skills that we can teach them so that they can go out and get a job. And then they also have to be at least 16 years old, and they have to have taken our job search class, which Mrs. Burgess also teaches, along with, I think maybe one of our other teachers teaches it sometimes. So why do we have a STEP program? Let's see what the literature says. I like literature. First of all, in 2004, the Individual with Disabilities Education Act mandated that secondary schools provide transition assessments, planning, and employment-related instruction. So we're mandated to have classes that deal with those issues. Also, our students come across a lot of barriers when it comes to finding a job. Some of them, according to the research, is just lack of employment skills in general, lack of self-advocacy skills, lack of those soft skills that they need, vocational problem-solving skills, and social skills sometimes is in the mix there. Some studies have shown that paid work experience during high school will often lead to competitive employment later in life. They've also found that students who have paid employment in community-based jobs in high school are twice as likely to be employed after graduation. Also, employment skill instruction is an integral component of high-quality transition education that contributes to post-secondary employment success. Another study has found that having a job in high school, not only are they making money, but they're also learning those really important socialization skills that sometimes they're lacking. Sometimes, so, as I said earlier, that's maybe one of the barriers to them getting a job. So if we can help them get into that situation, that workplace, develop those socialization skills, that's going to help them later in life. So a little bit of information about our particular STEP program. Like I said, Mrs. Gorges is the STEP teacher. These are just some of the things that she does. This is not a complete list. There's a lot of other things she does besides these. But she, one of the main things that she does is the foundational skills instruction, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. She oversees our job coaches. Right now we only have one, but we're hoping to hire another really soon. She also teaches the additional instruction to the STEP students using our Next Step curriculum that we have purchased. She teaches the job search class, like I said before, and then she's also managing our coffee shop on the ground. As far as our job coaches, this list also is not an exhaustive list of their entire, what they do, but as you can see, they have a lot on their plate as well. One of the biggest things they do at the very beginning of the year is collecting the STEP referral packets, which is a lot of paperwork that goes into when you're dealing with the government. There's always a lot of paperwork, forms that have to be signed by parents. They make copies of the IEPs, the transcripts, they gather all that information, and they actually put it into the WebCM program, which is the program that DRS uses for our STEP program. And they also help find jobs for our students. They provide transportation to get our students to their job sites. They are responsible for entering the student job hours into the WebCM program. And also the foundational skills, which again I'll talk about in a little bit, all that information gets put into the WebCM program. Currently, our contract, it used to be a STEP grant, and now they've changed it to a contract. Our contract amount for this year is only $25,600, and I'm saying only because before COVID, our contract was $86,000. So it has gone down significantly because of COVID. A lot of our students, and this is not just District 205, this is across the state. I would guess that every school who has a STEP program, their contracts went down. But how they divide that money up is we get paid, and it says limit on there, like foundational skill limit is $12,000. So that's the most that they will pay us for those foundational skills. Performance, the limit is $13,600. So what are the foundational skills? They are those 5 that are listed there: the job exploration counseling, the work-based learning experience, counseling on post-secondary education, workplace readiness training, instruction, and self-advocacy. And you can see off to the side there, I put how much the contract pays per skill, per student, per year. So once that skill has been put into WebCM for a specific student, that they've been taught that skill, then we get paid that amount of money, and then if we continue to work on those skills, which we do throughout the whole school year, we don't get paid each time. It's a one-time thing. But that is how we get paid for those. And then as far as promoting learning the foundational skills, obviously there's direct instruction. Mrs. Grojek just sets up mock interviews with step teachers. She also sets up interviews with real employers that come in, and sometimes our kids get hired on the spot. So that's always exciting. For the students who maybe need some other skills that are kind of the lower level skills like hand-eye coordination, maybe they need work on that, they need work on sorting. We have task boxes that they use for those. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, we have the Next Up curriculum that we purchased. And then the performance outcomes that I mentioned earlier, DRS each year projects how many outcomes they think we're gonna have. And this is just a goal. They projected 4 for us, which is actually really low. We have been as high as like 14 or 15. I've actually requested that they up it this year to 6, based on some numbers that I'll show you in a little bit that Mrs. Grojas provided for me. I haven't heard yet whether they've approved it or not, but I just feel like our program is moving along pretty well. We're getting back on our feet, and so I think we can reach 6 pretty easily. But an outcome, you can see there, the definition is it has to be competitive employment. They have to be paid unsubsidized by DRS. They have to work for at least 240 hours and a minimum of 60 days, and that's within a school year. And we already have at least one student who has met that so far this year. And then per outcome, we're paid $3,400. So if I can get them to up it to 6 outcomes, that's a little bit more money for us then. And then just some information about our program in particular. We do have some in-house settings. I already mentioned we have the Common Grounds Coffee Shop, but we also have a recycling program that is ran by the students in the Life Skills program. Tracy Sharp and Gina Lovedahl are the teachers that run that program. We have 25 students in the STEP program still, right? And the paid employment, we have 14 of those 25. And our volunteer positions, we have 11, but 4 of those we're hoping by the end of this current term that they'll be in paid employment as well. So I am going to let Mrs. Grojas talk about the coffee shop, and then we'll open it up to questions.
So we've actually reopened Common Grounds. Common Grounds opened up in 2016, and it was a 2015. And it was primarily to replace, many years ago, there was a candy store and a coffee shop, or in the high school, which obviously would not fly at all today. It got shut down, and we were looking for another way to do some in-house work. And so we came up with this idea to have a coffee shop, and it started out on a little AV cart in the teacher's lounge, and we had a Keurig, and we were basically just making coffee for teachers and delivering it to them. Fast forward to this year, thanks to everyone here, we have a built-in counter front and center right when you walk in the door, full-fledged coffee shop with all the works. It's beautiful. And I employ 4 students. We are able to pay them with the funds that we make at Common Grounds. We've been open for a total of 10 days because of construction. We've been up and running for 10 days now, and it's been very successful. We have 4 paid employees. They come in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we serve students from 7 o'clock until 7:35 when the first bell rings. And then we open again, then we close, and then we open again for students over the lunch hour. So during their half-hour time, they can come to the coffee shop. During first block, I have a class called Mini Shop, which is another work-based class. And those students actually they kind of maintain the old version of the coffee shop where they take teacher orders and we deliver and serve coffee and other drinks. We keep saying coffee, but there's other stuff at the coffee shop too. We have, I've had the students, of course, come. We've been very successful. We've heard the students talk about how great it is to have this coffee shop in their school, and it's an amazing opportunity for them. But more importantly, what I've seen from the other side of it is that I have 4 students, one of which I was pretty confident was gonna, take it and run with it. 2 that I thought if they just had a little bit of time and a little bit of training, I think that they could do a really great job. And then another one that really the reason he was staying with us at the coffee shop was because he was not going to be able to go out into the community and even to have somebody else work with him. They were gonna really need to understand him, really know that student. And I was completely surprised in the best way possible. All 4 students are very strong workers. The one student does still have some struggles, but we're working through those, and he's making steps, even in just the 10 days that we've been opened. The students are, all of those skills that Luann listed earlier, they are socially, they're interacting with people, they're proud of their job. Students come up and ask them, how did you get a job here? How did you get this job? And so it's been amazing to see that from a social aspect. They're very proud of their job. But also, we're running a cash register. We're learning how to make drinks. They're following recipes. They're just the whole experience is so close to just being this real life experience for them. And out of the 4, I think 3 of them could go out to any coffee shop in the community, and they'd be lucky to have them. So it's beyond what I could have imagined for them, and it's been really successful. So we're thankful for the opportunity, and we're thankful for the size. It has come with it's been a big undertaking, but it's been good. We've been happy with it. So.
Any questions?
Well, I tasted their coffee this morning. It was very good.
It is. We brew the coffee. They take 5 pounds of grounds and we put it into this bucket. It's specially made for it. And pour water over it. It like brews for 24 hours and then it makes a concentrate. And so then when he came in and ordered a coffee, then they pour in so much concentrate and then fill it the rest of the way up with water to get it to the right level. And they cap it and set it off. And it's a really good experience for them. I can't say that enough.
It doesn't look like it. Thank you. It sounds like you guys are doing a really great job.
It's great. Thank you.
Okay, next presentation is Ms. Mindy Richards.
Okay, good evening, members of the board, those in the audience. I'm your Director of Student Success and Support Services for District 205, and I'm excited to be here with a few of my colleagues to discuss a really exciting upcoming event here in District 205. So I'm here this evening with District SEL Instructional Coach Mindy Matthews and also Student Success and Support Services Counselor Sarah Wills. Mrs. Jennifer Ham will also be giving some information to you about this event very briefly. As you likely know, social and emotional learning is an important part of the Illinois Learning Standards, as well as the CASEL framework, which we use for social and emotional learning implementation, the framework for such in District 205. Our teachers have requested training around SEL. It's been very difficult to get that fit in with a lot of really important priorities we've had in District 205, particularly at Institute Time. There's been a lot of important things going on. So in an effort to demonstrate the district's commitment to social and emotional learning, we're planning this large wellness-oriented event called Choose to Thrive in 205. And you can see the save the date up on the screen there. So this event will occur on March 26, 2022 at Bellsburg High School. All of those teachers that choose to attend will be paid for attending. It is a Saturday. We want teachers to know that we value their time. Additionally, our presenters will be paid for their time as well, for the time to create the content for their particular session. Just a few logistical considerations or kind of cool things. We're going to start with entertainment. Guys and Ties coming from Moline, Illinois. Very briefly to entertain teachers, some of you maybe have seen them before. We will also have a catered lunch for attendees that will just be fabulous. And we also will give our teachers an opportunity to socialize, which is an important aspect of this as well, as a part of our vendors gallery, where we have some area businesses there to talk to our teachers.
All right, so programming of the event is next. We've secured a keynote speaker. Her name is Heather Forbes, and she is the owner of the Beyond Consequences Institute in Boulder, Colorado. She is an internationally published author on the topics of raising children with difficult and severe behaviors, as well as the impact of trauma. Mrs. Ritchie attended a session of hers at the Innovative School Summit in Orlando this past October, so we're very excited to have her join us. Topics for our event will fall into one of three categories. We have mental, physical, and professional wellness, as you can see on the wheel up there. Mrs. Ritchie already talked about the social aspect. Under mental wellness, some potential sessions might include calming techniques through art and balancing work-life responsibilities. Some possible sessions under physical wellness will include yoga for the soul and music, mood, and movement. As for professional options, we might have a session called The Porcupine's Guide to SEL and the yin and yang of SEL in academics. Now, presenters of these sessions are leaders in SEL within and outside of District 205. Invitations to present were actually delivered today, and we should receive confirmation from everyone by February 21st. As for the mode of delivery of these sessions, a majority of them will be in person, while a few others will be offered virtually. The keynote will be synchronous, it'll be virtual, but it will be live Zoom with her. And then a couple other sessions will be asynchronous or on demand. All sessions are meant to help educators strengthen their own wellness in the areas they choose. So out of that wheel, they can choose which ones. Regardless of an educator's path on March 26th, all sessions will include strategies for teachers to take back into their classrooms to use with their students.
Studies have shown that the COVID pandemic has greatly increased compassion fatigue in those in the service and helping industries, with teachers being listed as one of the groups most affected. Compassion fatigue is the emotional and physical exhaustion that comes from helping others through trauma and stress. So many of our teachers have been dealing with their own personal struggles through the pandemic and also have to remain a key player in the well-being of all the students in their classroom. This can be exhausting. I've seen it in my colleagues and actually have dealt with it sometimes myself. I often describe caring people and empaths as sponges who can only soak up so much before you're completely saturated. To be healthy, you have to have outlets and strategies that you can utilize to wring out your sponge. And that is what this day is designed to do. To teach educator resilience and give them skills to remain the empathic teachers that they want to be. We want to fill their cup so they have the skills for self-care. Our biggest hope is that these skills are utilized so well that we begin to see them used daily in the classroom, and then it creates modeling for students to use these skills as well for their own self-care and mental well-being.
Just in the interest of time, the financial information provided up here, if you have additional questions, Mrs. Ham can answer those for you, but essentially these funds were earmarked for SEL purposes, and it is all utilizing grant funds. So final slide to thank you for your time for us to introduce this exciting event to all of you, and we would also like to personally extend an invitation to all of you should you like to come and join us that day. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
What's your target number of teachers you're looking at?
So for our planning purposes, we're looking at 185 teachers in District 205.
And then we also, as part of our proportional share with Costa, we have 10 spots reserved for their teachers as well if they would like to attend.
Well, thanks so much. Okay. That wraps up presentations to the board. Next, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Any questions or comments?
Pam got it. Yeah. No, Tiana moved second.
Allison?
Toronto?
Aye.
Klein?
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Kirby?
Aye.
Bestad?
Aye.
Fisher? Aye.
And next, focus area 1, relevant skills that lead to employability. Report from the Galesburg High School Student Council.
Good evening, everybody. This is going to be a shorter update than usual. The last couple have been pretty extensive, but we're leveling out at this point. Recently, we've had 2 larger events, one being our second blood drive of the year. We had it with the American Red Cross, and we had another great turnout, just like last time. So thank you to all the students and also the other members of the community that came out to support us. The other big event that we had was just this past week with our 2022 Sweetheart Swirl. The theme was Enchanted Forest, like I said before. Our class swirl window competition was tight, but the juniors came out on top. As a senior, I was pretty angry, but I'll let democracy live. Congrats to them, as well as our wonderful swirl corps. Our pep rally and dress-up days were also huge successes. Thank you all to who made this week possible, and thank you for listening.
It's pretty short. Just one. I want to congratulate you because I think I saw that you were accepted into your number 1, your top choice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Okay. Next, the curriculum report. Dr. Spurgeon.
All right, before the high school admin start joining me, Ms. Escobar and Mr. Hawkins, they can make their way up here. I wanted to draw your attention to the data that was mentioned. I think Lombard did a great job of emphasizing the growth, but we also had some tremendous growth as a district, so I'm going to show this to you here. These are the kindergarten benchmarks. So students coming in, we had 70% of the students in the red, which meant the grade level below. Okay, so they were not kindergarten ready. So with just September to December, we already dropped 25% of those students out of that red and moved them into the yellow and green, with tremendous increases in the green at 17%. You'll see the same thing for first grade. I'll slide down there and show you the graphs. A drop of 21% in the red, but an increase of 17% in the green, which is where we want them to be on grade level. And this is following the pandemic. So these are the students who didn't have kindergarten face-to-face for the majority of the year. So this is tremendous growth in just a short period of time. And then here's second grade. And you'll notice the green is significantly larger here as well, with the growth of 22% in green, and then a reduction of 17% in the red, which is kudos to our educators who are working with those students. I also want to show you, sorry, it's a little particular. Oh my goodness. Give me one moment. Here we go.
What does the green mean?
The green means on grade level. They are where they need to be. Yellow means they need some additional support, and red means they're at risk and need intensive supports. Here's our Scantron benchmarking for grades 3 and 4 in reading. We have a reduction in the above average here in grades 3 and 4, and some movement here in the low. We'd like to look at possibly moving to Ames web probes for those students in the near future, here in the fall, potentially, just to see if we can get some more articulated growth with our letters training that's more specific to those needs, and we can be more strategic with our instruction as well. Our middle school students actually had some movement, minimal at this point, in the Galesburg High School the same. What I'd really like to emphasize is our ready math data. As Ms. Kane mentioned, she's a rock star math teacher. I think across the district, you'll notice this graph in particular, which is really exciting to see the district in a whole. On the left-hand side of the larger graph at the top, you'll notice that we only had 10% of the students in the green, which meant they were on grade level or above grade level. Dark green indicates above grade level, and that dark number is 3% at that point. So together, that was 10%. We are now at 24% in just a period of months. You'll also notice the light red, which means 2 grade levels below, and the dark red is 3 grade levels below. We've moved that significantly, with 43% going down to 30% in just that same span of time. So I think it's important to note. I also provided you the side-by-sides in case you want to look at that by grade level. And then I also showed you their typical growth, the number of students on their way to typical growth, and those on stretch growth. So we've been working with these students diligently. I'm very impressed by the efforts. I'm going to actually ask the high school administration to come up here. We're going to give you kind of an update of where we are in the high school move.
How does these growth rates compare to what you expected?
I'm actually pleasantly surprised, to be honest with you, because as the Lombard group mentioned previously, we worked on this summer on aligning our science plans, our English plans, and our math plans to account for those prerequisite skills that we knew students were going to be lacking because of the pandemic, and buffered some time in there so that we could go back and redo some of those pieces or fill in those gaps. And to still see this progress on grade level work is exciting and really encouraging, which is why we celebrated today with staff. As you noticed, we provided lunch for district staff at all the school buildings, calling it sweet success because they were really excited about the efforts. And then students were able to also enjoy some activities within their buildings to celebrate that same success. I'm going to scroll up for the presentation.
Well, it's good to see that positive academic success. I'm glad to see it.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Enjoy being here. As you can see, I dressed for Valentine's Day. Good joke. A little bit. Thanks for getting that.
Like a steel trap.
So I'd like to just say how proud I am of that STEP program. Well, I think the biggest things I get out of watching it every day is the fact that kids are truly proud to be working there, wearing the aprons, and also to hear the banter, the workplace banter that goes on when they're cleaning up every day is really awesome to see. Dr. Asplin, members of the board, our community stakeholders, thank you for this opportunity to come up here and talk about the work that I am really proud that we've been doing since the start, since summer, and getting ready to go. First thing we're going to talk about is where we've been, talking about last summer. In summer, we were provided the opportunity for 3 days at Lombard. We met at Lombard, of course, because the high school was under construction, but to get together in our curricular teams and start talking about revitalizing our standards into what we call power standards. And basically, the easiest way to say it is if you were to tell a teacher, you have 5 seconds to think about the 5 most important things you want your students to leave the classroom with, what would those be? Those critical skills that we want our students to perform and mastery. And then we started talking about moving into creating quarterly objectives in order to teach those power standards. And in the future, we're looking at those coming together and creating common assessments. That's what we worked on over those 3 days. All right, and we've since then have been able to continue to provide opportunities this past fall to those our curricular teams to get together and continue to work, and also provide opportunities for some of the groups that weren't able to join us those days. Toward the end of the fall, we started meeting with our department heads and saying, okay, we'd like you to go back to your teams, and we'd like you to start talking about, the discussions of our course book. One of the things our department head leaders really they wanted is the opportunity to lead, and I think they've done a fantastic job of leading their own groups this year and helping create some of our course opportunities. So as you can see, as we move in, our department heads worked and to make necessary adjustments to existing courses. Now, we kept some of the same courses we currently offer, But we also started in the summer thinking about different courses that we could provide students, a new direction, all right? And so they did create some new courses for submission. And as you can see, some of the new courses, if you remember our past course book, we had AP and basically we had it in science, we had it in math, we had some English language arts, but now social studies has wanted to jump into the game. We also have it that we're going to start getting some of our business is wanting into the AP game. So as you can see, some of the ones that we wanted to highlight: AP Human Geography. This idea, Prairies, Pioneers, and Poets, was brought to us by Mr. Brett Wolf. We talked about just general history, but what about the history of our local community? The people that came together to help create the community we live in. That's what that course is designed to look at. Graphic Design 2 and 3, AP Calculus BC, Survey of Technologies. That Survey of Technologies kind of, if you look into that a little bit, it's talking about those emerging trends in the tech field where some of the jobs are starting to be created. All right, I think that's an intro course so students can see that. Music and the Written Word, Bree Hankus. Was one of our English language arts teachers, but if you remember, she started with us as a band, as the director of band. And so analyzing lyrics and stuff and how that's created. So we continue to work on those power standards and also working with our counselors to developing a series of assessments in Zello. Now, some of you may remember career cruising, where we gave the career cruising packet to our 8th graders, and they went and filled a needs assessment to try to figure out their interests and those career paths. Well, Zello is a program that we have purchased, and that is what we are currently using now to identify those career interests. So hopefully our counselors can help provide that pathway, that beginning pathway to our students. And then our department heads and administrators completed the creation of the course book that we provided you with. All right. The one thing I want to emphasize is the last thing there, is that this was truly a collaborative process from, we had, if you think back, we had members of the community talking about, the kind of courses they want the children in this community to have. We had students who voiced their opinions of what they wanted, teachers, administration. We've involved also our central office staff. So this has been a great effort of coming together to do this. So now I'm going to push it on to Ms. Mitzi Escobar to talk about where we are going.
So actually, as of today, we have started our what we call pre-orientation registration. So the current juniors, well, next year's seniors, then next year's juniors, and then next year's sophomores will all meet with counselors in a large group by grade level and field, just to kind of go over some of the basics they need to know, some rough timelines. And then as we get into next week, we're going to start having counselors meet with small groups to do their registration. One of the things that they're going to do is it's not just graduation requirements. They're taking that information from Zello and finding out what the kids' career interests are and trying to identify coursework that would actually also lead to that. And the last piece we're also looking into is what is their interest? What are their interests? Because now we have such a wide open array of them. What are they interested in? What can they take? And then we're going to introduce a new piece this year, the AP Potential. This past fall, we went ahead and tested completely voluntarily about 125 students on the PSAT 10th and 11th graders. What we got back from that was a report from College Board that tells us each of those students and what courses, if AP were offered at your school in that course, what their success rate would be. So this end of this week, we're going to go ahead and mail out those letters. Some students came back with out of the 13 we're going to be offering next year, that some of them could take all 13. Well, we all know they're not going to, but at least then they know that there's a high success rate for them. We're going to start using some of that data points so parents know that their kid is testing kind of to show an interest level there that could come across there. So our counselors are going to do those individual meetings. Even if they're in a small group, if they still have questions, they can meet with their counselor individually. It's not just, well, that was your one time. We'll be going back through that. So that we'll spend over the next about 3 weeks doing that. We have a couple checkpoints along the way just to check and see how it's going. What classes are we not seeing kind of fill up, or are we seeing a lot of interest, so we kind of have a game plan with what we need to look into. And then we'll be focusing on our incoming ninth graders. Our counselors will go over there. They'll also be working with them on graduation requirements, but as well getting to know them and their interests and try to find some courses, particularly the elective category, that they're going to be interested in taking. As we get to the spring, the teachers are going to continue working on their curriculum. They're starting to get a little bit excited about making that transition. They want to get those curriculum maps. They want to get those common assessments, tests and projects. Some of our departments are already ahead of the game. They've created Google Drives and Google folders where they're putting in their favorite test or their favorite project or their favorite lesson to meet those criteria. So that way everybody in the department has access to it. So instead of just being in their one class, everybody in the department can now have access to that lesson and to talk about the merits of that. And then we will begin the master schedule. As we go from a 4-block period to a 7-period day, it's a big undertaking, but we're excited for it. So it's always a lot of fun if you like puzzles. That's really what it is. And then what we're excited about is we actually get to add to our team is Mr. Nick Young is going to be joining in. So we need to get that 7-8 in there. And we're going to have some teachers that may have to be a 7-8 and a 9-10, and particularly some teachers that are asked to do that. We have a couple of our JVC, CTE teachers that have created some junior high classes to try to get the kids interested at that level, particularly the emerging technologies, and bring that on and up so they can create and build up their programs as they go through it. Okay, so graduation requirements. We're going to be moving from where we are now, which is a 28 graduation requirement. As we move to a 7-period day, 28 becomes not able to be done as easily. So we went ahead and we wanted to show you the credit shifts. Starting with next year's senior class, they will require 27 credits to graduate, so 1 less than the current senior class. And there's no change in credits required for grade level classification. The following year, the class of 20...
You want to explain what that means a little bit more?
Oh, I'm sorry. So when we thank you. So when we decide, like, when we say to a kid, oh, you're a freshman or you're a sophomore, the current breakdown that's out there does not change. So 20.5 credits for a senior, 6.5 credits for a freshman, that stands still for next school year. The following school year, in the class of 2024, they'll need 26 credits to graduate, and that drops down to 19 credits needed to be classified as a senior. The freshman level, the sophomore, and the junior levels all remain the same credit-wise. But the senior one drops down to pick that up and move them along. The class of 2025, we did like this one, it's 25 credits to graduate. It'll be the easy one to remember. That year, the junior classification drops down to 12.5, and the senior also drops down to 18.5 to keep the proportions correct.
Can I ask a question at this point? If a student passes all their classes in a given year, they will get 7 credits for that year, correct?
Correct. So all of these classes, just as a side note, all of them are a mixture of kids that have been on the 4-block and the 7 periods, so we had to do all the math to do this. We do have the math if anybody's interested. We actually do have that piece for you. And then finally, with the incoming freshman class, they'll need 24 credits to graduate. It will be 5 credits necessary to become a sophomore, 11 to be a junior, 17 to become a senior. And then off to the right are all the graduation requirements. English will be 4 credits, math will be 3 credits, science is 2 credits, social studies is 2 credits, consumer ed is a half credit, that is a state requirement, state law. Health is a half credit, again, state law. PE, we have 2 credits, computer literacy is 1 credit. We have that with an asterisk. That is a new component starting with this class. They're requiring everybody in the class of 2026 and beyond to have 1 credit of computer literacy. The guidelines from the state are pretty wide open, so we came up with a couple of course offerings so people can pick what they like more of. So fulfill that, and then they'll have 9 elective credits, so 9 classes of credits that they can go pick their interests and career paths to find out what they like while still in high school.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why are we waiting 4 years to bring consumer literacy into our curriculum?
Consumer literacy is actually still current now. The only new one is the computer literacy. That's asterisk.
Why are we waiting 4 years?
They can take it now, it's just that that's the requirement to graduate.
Required.
Okay.
required. Kids take it now, we have quite a few that go through our business and computer program, but this is the requirement, nobody can leave high school without it. And then some shifts and some change of practice coming.
Go back to the numbers. So a student who passes all the classes in 4 years has 28 credits, correct?
Correct.
But you only need 25 to graduate, correct?
Well,
That year.
Yes.
So do you foresee more students graduating early? Because kids who pass only need to go through the first semester to get the requisite number of classes. So we're projecting more early graduations or about the same?
I think it's going to be about the same. I came out of a system like this. We didn't see any big change when that happened because you have to pre-plan. You can't just drop at December of your senior year because that would only be 3.5 English credits. So you have to pre-plan to how to get that fourth part, the last half credit of English. So you don't see it as much. It doesn't, big increase, doesn't become like, whoa, I woke up today, I'm ready to graduate. They have to plan for it and know where they're kind of headed with it.
Thank you.
Another question, sorry. Will they get PE credit for participating in a sport or band as in the past?
Yes, and we outlined that in the Coursework through pages 5 through 8. There are waivers in there that count as their PE credits.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Well, let's be clear. It doesn't count as PE credit.
But it is an
You don't get
exemption.
2 credits for 1 period. So it counts as one of your requirements to take PE, but if you're taking a waiver for PE, you're filling it with philosophy or economics or woodshop or home ec or whatever.
Correct.
So you're taking a class, so you can still exempt yourself from PE if you fall into the exception. That only exempts you to take another class. It doesn't give you an automatic credit.
Hang out at the coffee shop,
Hey, they work there. So you gotta earn it, I'm sure that's like to have one house.
So as you notice, one of the things we really wanted to capitalize on is the opportunity to like reinvent ourselves, right? And open up the doors on what we can do and what we can offer students through a variety of pathways, different coursework, and just opportunities too to excel without the fear of failure. I want someone to try an AP class without some kind of a requirement for them to be at this certain proficiency. If I feel like I really want to try something out, I have the opportunity. So our whole mindset in this shift is to level up, right? Level up, take on the challenge, and see how it plays out. With support obviously in place through counseling and administration and those kind of things, and obviously your teacher is your first line of support. But just really opening up the floodgates for opportunities to see that 712 campus. And you'll see that on this very next slide. So leveling up, next year we'll go from 8 AP classes on the campus to 13 being offered through this registration process. So we're going to bring in AP Calculus AB, which is first and second semester calculus, for BC is second and third semester calculus. AP Chemistry is going to come back. It has been gone for a couple of years, but we have a teacher who's interested in bringing that back. AP Human Geography, which is one of the newest College Board AP classes out there, which actually studies multicultural studies, and it's everything about that, and the land, the culture, the monetary systems. AP Psychology, and then even Art jumped in and wants to do AP Studio Art Drawing, where the students will present a portfolio to College Board to be scored. Some of the things we are doing to help counsel the students up is kind of removal of the assessment, where the students take a test on one day and that determines if they're eligible or not. If a parent and student feel that their kid would like to try honors, this is the time to try it and do it in a safe place where they can still go down if they're uncomfortable or it's too much for them. But here's a safe place to try it for them. We're also looking at those kids that are getting like 97 in their on-level English class or their on-level math class, encouraging them to try the honors and get into that accelerated and push themselves, again, in a safe space, where it's okay if they struggle a little bit, we're there to help support them, and if they're still struggling, we have a place for them to come down to versus when it costs $3,000 for the class. That went wrong. We're going to use an AP potential. Again, there's a letter, and then we have a full report on all of the students and the scores that goes with that. And then we're also still encouraging our teachers to do the recommendation. There's nothing more exciting for a student is when their teacher says, I really think you should try this, and then they call home and tell the parent the same thing.
We have a lot of teachers doing that right now, actually, talking to their kids. I was up in math today, and there was a lot of conversations about, I really feel like you need to try honors pre-calculus. I'm even gonna call home and let mom know, I really think you're gonna do a great job of that. So we're trying to counsel the kids up and give them the support they need to go for that. And the last thing is, there's been conversation potentially about removing weighted grades for AP coursework, starting that freshman group. And we'll go into a little bit more detail as to why that's a consideration to look into.
So we propose that when we're providing all of these opportunities for challenge, right, and leveling up and trying some new things, we'd really like to recognize the academic excellence of a larger number of our students. Currently, we have the top 10, as you know, after the Hall of Fame, but we believe that a Latin honor system, which I have a printout for the board members of a variety of school districts throughout the state that use those. That's not inclusive of all the districts, but those are some samples that I provided for you. Essentially, what would happen is you would have your students, and we try to look back after the curriculum committee, member Cervantes had said, and it'd be nice to see what those numbers look like. As we pulled back, we couldn't necessarily determine weighted from unweighted, but we could see roughly 75 to 86 students per band. And when I say band, I mean the Latin honor system. So you have the cum laude system. Highest would be with greatest, with highest honor, with greatest, with great honor, and then with honor. Those would be the levelings. But you would see about 75 to 85 students in each of those categories as we see it now. Obviously, with the weighted, we'll have some different numbers, but think about the number of students we can recognize for academic excellence when we're asking them to go harder, right? Push harder, do more, try some new things, but yet having that soft place to land and still being recognized for that step of faith, honestly, into trying something new. It motivates students to enroll in the harder classes like I talked about without worrying about their class rank. As we've looked in several different places through accrediting bodies and higher ed, they're not looking at class rank as much anymore, as you know. They're looking on the rigor of coursework and the students' drive, and then their opportunities to see a variety of potential samples from student work and portfolios, as we mentioned about the AP process. So again, we're focusing on personal interests and career paths versus the focus on the weighted grades. Additionally, we just think that this would open a new opportunity for students to really excel. So timing, if we're asking students to take these leaps of faith, we also have to look at the research, right, to support providing that best environment for our students. So in doing that, we've had several conversations over the last 2 years, knowing that we're moving into this potential 7-12 complex about start times and adolescent sleep, and all of us know about the tardies and absences that exist within all of our K-12 schools, but specifically at the higher levels of 6 through 12. So one of the things we considered reviewing that we wanted to propose to you tonight is just a topic of conversation and consideration would be a shift in start times for adolescents following the research. So potential, and just like I said, this is potential. So this is just an idea that might be a plausible solution. Would be our 7:40 start time is our current start time on the 9-12 campus. We're proposing when we go to the 7-12 campus that they would potentially start at 8:35 a.m. And that would be to follow the research based on these following entities. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, talks about the shifting during puberty time. They're later to sleep and later to rise. Anybody with a teenager, I have 3 of them, I could say they are later to sleep and later to rise. And mornings are wonderful with 3 girls, teenagers. Remedial through later start times. So if we have the opportunity to adjust that, recognizing the literature that exists. The American Academy of Pediatrics talks about the middle school and high schools should start no earlier than 8:30 through their research. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine also talks about 8 to 10 hours of sleep for 13 to 18-year-olds, which it was less than a quarter of our students nationally are at that 8 to 10 hours. I really liked this quote. Essentially, we know that student sleep time is biologically determined, but we actually socially determine it by our school start times. So some of the pros and cons, we obviously recognize that with a shift, there's always going to be positives and negatives. So some of the things we propose to you as what we found in the research, and you have a blue packet with all of the research articles. There's plenty more, but there's a huge review of literature, so it takes several studies into account and it'll let you see how those fall out. Some of the pros that were listed within that include that research based on the late to sleep and late to rise based on the circadian rhythms. There's more school night sleep observed when schools start later. There's more daytime alertness and focus, so the engagement is higher. A decrease in tardies and absences, and then improvement of student mood and overall physical health is recognized. Obesity, those types of things are also recognized within research. We recognize there are cons to this, however, right? So if you're starting at that 8:35 time, we're ending at 3:50 p.m. So there's a loss of seat time in courses for student athletes. Mr. Matthews was going to come up here and join us. You also have a packet from Mr. Matthews that looks like this. Yes, and he's going to explain a little bit about what that looks like.
I would love to take credit for all of this, but I would be lying if I did. So
That would be the work of Mindy Matthews.
yeah, and if you saw my administrative certificate, it should say her name at the bottom of that as well. Yeah, well, yeah, but look where I'm at. So hey, so what we wanted to do was to take this year's athletic schedule and look at the transportation times based on if we were getting out on this late dismissal. So we looked at advocacy, 6th period, and 7th period. So if we look at it, and I'll just use the top one, it says girls golf, and it's per month, per sport. So girls golf, one time in August, we'll miss ADVO, 6th and 7th period. So that'll happen one time. And then right below that, they will miss 6th and 7th period 5 times. So that's kind of, and if it's whited out, then that group would not be missing anything. So if you just kind of follow it down, it will show you, okay, tennis in August is going to miss, they've got a match where they're going to miss 6th and 7th period. We've got junior high sports on there as well, and we go all the way through August, September. On the back of that, we've got October. Now, we do have events where kids are just gone all day. Like, for example, we have Chloe Days going to the state bowling tournament, and we've got 3 wrestlers leaving Thursday. So they're leaving Thursday morning. So those aren't really factored in here too much, because whether we were getting out at 2:40 or 5 o'clock, they're going to be gone all day. So that doesn't make a difference. So they're kind of those outliers that they don't really factor into any of that. So it's really looking at those regular season events that we would have for those extracurriculars all the way through till May. Now, one thing, this was brought up, is when we have home events, and I'll just use track. Track meets start at 4 o'clock. Kids have to be out there at least an hour before. So we potentially might have, even for home events, kids missing a portion of 7th period because they need to get out there to get prepared for whatever it is, get stretched, whatever, even for a home event. So it's not only away, there's going to be those potential home events where the kids are going to have to get out there to get ready for whatever extracurricular activity they're going to be involved in. So this is just kind of food for thought to kind of look at, see how many events may or may not be factored into it. So does anybody have any questions just kind of looking at it?
Yeah, Mr. Matthews, what percentage of the student body would this affect?
I don't know that. I did not figure that out.
You told us in the past, though, that at the high school we have roughly 300 athletes.
Yeah.
So that depends on the sport. No, I'm just saying, so that you can at least get some number to
Yeah.
kind of filter that thing down.
Yeah. And, like football, who's our largest, I'll just use them, they don't really run into this very much. So largest number, not so much. But, let's just, in the fall, golf is a big one. Spring, baseball, softball, track. Those are, I mean, baseball and softball can play 35 games. You just figure half of them are home and half of them are away, so, and we host more at home because of our tournaments and things. We have title money we can take out, or ESSER funds, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know where it went, so, at least it's not.
Like it went down.
I think the other piece to mention too, we discussed this, all four of us. There is potential for students that are in some of those sports though to take schedule their PE at the end of the day as well, like an athletic PE. So that would be something that they're still getting.
Yeah, we would highly encourage them to, get an athletic PE, weight training, whether we have a study skills or a study hall or something there that we can put at the end. Having a daughter that will play volleyball, encouraging her that she needs to get in something like that at the end of the day so she's not missing a science or a math. Just to kind of help move them along as they go through.
And just so everybody here understands too, so we didn't pick any magic time for when we were starting the high school. We just built this on, let's try to start the grade school as close to 8 as possible, okay? So with this proposal, Lombard would start like 7:50 and the other grade schools would start at 8. 7:40. 7:40, that's right. 7:40 and 7:50. And so this, we're not asking anybody to vote on this tonight, first of all. This is illustrative. This is just look at it, let's chew on it, think about it. We will try to come back next month with some other options that would be just gradations of that, but it's baked. I mean, you can kind of start to see where we are. And then the soonest we would be asking you to vote on a time change would be March, but it would, probably be April. So we don't want to go any later than that.
This is for next year.
Correct. This is for next year. So if the will of the board is, forget it, leave where it is, we can do that. If it is, we like this, but we'd like to see what other options are out there, we'd like to provide you that. We just had to start somewhere, and this was a lot of data to put in front of you. We didn't want to start confusing everybody. So this is one option. If we want to go earlier with the grade schools, which is the only way to make the high schools end late and earlier, I mean, we're going to get into some pretty early times. So, I mean, that's just the reality of this when you have a finite number of buses, which somebody listening with buses, what's that have to do with it? It has everything to do with it. Because there are only so many buses right now. We run approximately 24 or 25 routes. Because that's all the drivers we have. We can't get more. And so that means that we have to have one set of routes for younger kids and one set of routes for older kids. And so when they drop off the one set of kids, they run out and pick up the other kids and bring them to school. So we just can't make it work. You have to have at least 45 minutes in between the first block and the second block of kids so that we can go out and pick up kids. So that everybody understands why this is the way it is. If money were no object, we had unlimited buses, we could start and end every school at the same time. We can't do it. It's not feasible, and we can't. So anyway, just want to make sure everybody's aware. We're not asking for anybody to vote tonight, but this is a direction we'd like to look at.
So, Eric, can I ask a little more data for next month, though?
Yeah.
This is under the proposed schedule. Could you do the same thing on how much is missed, like this year? Or if we are on the same schedule we have now, I'm sure people still leave early.
Yeah, we talked about that today.
I think we need to know how it compares.
We're still going to have the somewhat of the last, I'll just say 7th period. Like, we're still going to have that. It's just how much would it trickle into the 6th period.
Right, so I think we need to see the comparison to make an assessment how much worse it is. Does that make sense?
Do you offer like early morning classes for some students?
That is the plan moving forward as well.
Early bird?
Yeah.
We talked about the early bird.
We did.
Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So that could be an option for athletes as well.
Yes.
Right, and as we said, now that in a 4-block setting, you have half the year you're on PE class and half the year you're not. And then if you have a waiver, you're never in. But for those that are in PE. So in a full year scenario, students who are in PE are in all year. And since we're big enough, we can get to the point where we can schedule most of our athletes in 7th hour PE. so that if they are in PE, that's where they would go. Now, that's not gonna be everybody, but that is part of the solution.
Could they ask six period advocacy?
We've looked at where advocacy goes. There's some.
So some of the concern there is the possibility of just taking out the non-instructional or previous, it'd be the same thing as you put it on the front end of the day, you have no parties because students didn't find that the instructional period. They were concerned about that on the back end.
Good point.
So I appreciate. So I appreciate.
Yes, I have.
So I appreciate you seeing this. Thanks, Ms. Matthews, by the way. So, that thought of gym towards the end of the day would be great, but for those individuals who may take that math course, is there any thought into, if tutoring or something of that nature might need to be done for those individuals? Like, what is a thought with that? And or if early bird isn't taken, if that ends up being an option, like what might be the option for those individuals who might not be able to stay on track?
Well, we would continue to provide the tutoring services because we currently do. I mean, that's something we provide now. They have the opportunity to probably meet with a teacher, if they were concerned with subjects, we talk about them being students, people that are athletes, making sure those academics are covered. We also have opportunities for math labs that we're building within the school day so that they have opportunity to go in and get the assistance that they need. So that is also a possibility as well. Already built it. Did I forget anything? Oh, yeah, English one as well, sorry.
So with so many of these, who's gonna really stay on top of that? Because, I'm just gonna assume at this point, who's gonna stay on top of that with all of this that we're seeing at least right now before we get to that? Who will stay on top of all that?
So I guess I'm trying to get clarification when you say who's on top of.
All of
These
these absences and then.
implementation part or just like in the plan?
Yeah, both, I guess.
Well, I think the implementation would be the whole body of care, right, at the high school, making sure that counselors are noticing students' grades, you've got teachers supporting the students, admin are constantly looking at the data. Mr. Matthews is always
But I guess,
aware.
one thing I said is, this is kind of been going on since the beginning of the time, but if you are a student athlete, part of being a student athlete is time management, workload, practice, and all those. So we can have the best system in place, but it's still, they got to bring something to the table too, as far as, being able to manage, running cross country, but maybe having biology at the end of the day kind of thing. So we want to set it up so it makes it easier for them, for sure, but there's going to come a time where there's going to be a kid that has to have that class at the end of the day for either graduation or whatever, it's something in their field that they're looking to go into when they graduate. So that's, as Tamika said, it's just, I guess, 3 or 4 parties working together trying to figure out how to make that work.
And you run weekly eligibility, so the
Oh,
parents
yeah.
are aware
Yeah.
if a student is struggling.
Yeah, and we do that for, we can, we've done it and we can do it for, if there's case by case kind of things that we're watching to make sure that someone's not slipping through the cracks, that between the coach and Mrs. Grace, as we're, trying to make sure that someone is starting to slip, we're kind of catching that on the early, front end and not on the back, and then by then it's too late.
Right, I'm just hoping that, like, if we're moving to this later system, knowing that already, being able to see this data, that we're in a more reactive situation.
Yep.
In this case.
Sure.
Instead of,
I agree. Yep.
That's just what
Yep.
Now, was there any concern about starting the elementary schools earlier
Good
though?
question.
That slide, Jack.
There's no slide in that?
There's about 3 more.
There's about 3 more.
Oh, I'm
They'll just show
sorry.
the schedule
I
for
thought I
the
looked
given
at it.
time. Your elementary students, as many elementary parents can attest to, are up with the sun, and they are typically early to rise, and that's what the other data shares in those articles that I presented you with. So we would start the elementaries earlier. I wanted to note first, we do have a concern. One of the cons that we didn't mention thus far is we recognize there are a lot of students who are working for their family. And so one of the things we're considering is, most of those shifts start like a 4 to 10 or 3:30, So we are wondering how that will play out with students needing work plays into it and how we work around that. We recognize it doesn't apply to everybody, just like the athletic concern, but we do want you to keep that in mind as well.
Do we have any numbers as far as how many students will job this way?
We could look at, I mean, we could do a survey.
You can try, yeah.
Yeah, we could do a survey, yeah, absolutely. So as proposed, this is the K-4 schedule that the committee developed. This is with that 7:50 start time as opposed to 9 that we currently do. And this just shows you, essentially, this is just your special schedule. You'll see the rotations and how they play out. And they would then end at 3:05. The 5-6 schedule would start at 7:40, so your 5th and 6th graders, and they would end at 2:55. And actually, Ms. Kane, do you see those class periods?
I do. I just looked at that. I was gonna get my camera ready.
They're longer than what they are this year. Yes, we were able to, because we're moving to that 7-hour, 15-minute instructional day, that add more time back into the classroom, so we're able to spread those things throughout the instructional periods. And you'll see Ms. Hutton noted that homeroom students can stay in the first period, so we avoid a transition, so we go right into that first period. And then here's the 7-12 schedule, as you've seen multiple times here at the board. It just shows that 8:35 to 9:35 start time, or 8:35 start time, that's that first period, and then ending at 3:50. That's the end. Oh, yeah, I also needed to mention to you about PALS, because we recognize start times would be different. We also have those delayed Wednesday staff meeting days. I've already met with Mr. Sampson at the YMCA to let him know that that was going to be the case, and if there was opportunity for programming to be available on those delayed Wednesdays. He's already willing to extend the programming at the schools for each of the elementaries and the 5-6. And I said, my concern is with the high school starting later, and I'm always worried about tardies and absences. What if a parent has to drop off the elementary students and then their high schoolers left there that doesn't drive, or their 8th graders left there that doesn't drive? What can we do for them? He said he would provide a team center within the YMCA to support us in that every day of the week, including those delayed days, and they can provide busing to our school. Because half of the district campus is right behind the YMCA, but he would bus and provide transportation for those students who attended that in the morning to school. And then in the good weather, you know, he would have transportation. He would actually supervise the walking of that to school. And he would have after-school programming as well. And he's offering after-school programming for K through 9, which was a concern of mine. He was more than willing to partner with us. We're very excited about the opportunity, actually. Thank you for bringing that up.
And all these schedules allow for the breakfast after the bell in all the schools, correct? And how is that working currently at the high school center?
Well, you know, the great part about that is.
A little louder, please.
Matt's here, we'll let Matt talk about it. I think it's great, I think it's going well.
I mean, at the high school, 3 rows. Use a microphone.
Yeah, we don't have one.
So the high school operates a little bit differently than in the classroom. K-12, we actually distribute the breakfast to the classrooms, they eat in the classroom. At the high school, they have the option of picking up a breakfast at a mobile, it's kind of like a mobile standalone unit, and then they actually eat in the cafeteria area at the high school. Churchill Lombard eat in their classrooms, but they also go to the cafeteria area, pick up their breakfast, and go. So a little bit of a different scenario at every school.
If I could add that at the beginning of the year, Mr. Davis had the cart up by the front entrance to catch the bus riders. We noticed that we were missing a lot of students that were walking in that provided their own transportation. So we slowly started moving the cart back, letting people know, the bus riders know that to get lunch, breakfast, they need to go up toward the hallway that comes off our existing band hallway. So it's right up by the servery right now. The kids, it catches the kids that are coming in and also catches the kids from the buses, they know to go there.
With the addition of the 7th and 8th graders next year, we've already started having the discussion about how we would incorporate more options into, you know, having more students, so more areas where we can capture students.
Thank you.
Just informational tonight, we're not asking anybody to vote.
You talk about tardies a lot, and I know that we have a problem with parents getting elementary kids to school on time. How do you feel about this start time? Do you think that it will be better getting kids there that earlier because parents will be heading to work? Or do you feel like it will be more tardies because the parents won't be able to get their children there?
I don't know that I can have a definitive answer for you, just a lot of that depends on the situation, right? But to your point, I do think that the reality of most parents starting likely at 8 o'clock or a little bit before, this actually provides a better opportunity and buffer for them. And it was a challenge for me and myself to get my girls to school at a 9 o'clock start time when my work started well before 8. But I also think the reverse is true for the 7, 8, 9 switching, right? So it, I mean, we'll have to see how that plays out. But I am encouraged by the fact that we have a path for parents who don't necessarily have that childcare, that the YMCA has said, we're gonna support you, and have plans to do so. In fact, the plans are big, so I'm pretty excited about it. And then the supervision there from the Y to school.
That's probably a question to the outreach workers, I think, they know why the kids are missing, whether it's, work-related, problems with transportation.
Well, there's a host of scenarios, right? I mean, and a lot of the times, you've got outreach workers, Ms. Conrad, really can attest to this, they're going to the door and they don't get a response. So some of that is still.
Well, I'm just saying, if it were work-related, and that is going to be an issue, they would be aware of that, and
Absolutely.
and insight into that.
So, with 7-8 going to the high school, so the AP honors is gonna be offered to them as well, is that correct?
At this point, it would be 9th graders. The 9th and 10th would be looking at going into AP. So our first one is, our entry is 10th.
But the high achieving 9 can, there's no restriction on that, and then when we have those high achieving 8th graders, they are open to go down, if they need honor geometry, then in they go. If they're interested in starting their foreign language at the 8th grade level, they also can, to still have all learners available.
So at 8th grade, they'll be able to,
Even if you have a really exceptional 7, we don't want to restrict that.
And we know the goal is to have our 8th graders taking out for one, so they won't write into honors geometry. That's not an opportunity as well.
Okay, so, other question, college credits, what about that? Are we allowing
The dual
that
credit
since they're there?
opportunity is
or
still available.
At 7 or 8? Or no?
I think 9 and 12.
Just 9.
Do you see anything different?
We have to, like, look at the MOU with the MDC, a lot of times it's colleges restricted against that, and it's a case-by-case basis, but it's lower than that grade. So
I think it's 9 through 12. I think, we'll double check. I think there's different.
Now, I think the same class December, starting age, I think 13, but in order for it to be dual.
And when are we gonna start looking at that, possible schedule for the second grade, and what options are in that?
So that's part of what we're doing after we register the 9th graders, are the
So I know when,
students in 9th
about
graders.
when are we gonna see that?
March.
I would say next month.
Yeah.
But you will likely not get a report on them, we'll be starting that process in March. Because we also want to know how it plays out for the students that are going to be at the 9-12, right? And to see what else is available to provide those students, like you said, or languages, all of those.
Well, we do know that the junior high kids will get they'll get one more elective in the half. Well, they will have the 7-period day, just like the 9 through 12. It's just how we work those electives into that, the period.
We're gonna hold our rest of the point,
Yes,
kind of
that's-
like the game.
No, well, actually, it's not really late in the game. I mean, in fact, when we get what the high school is doing, we'll know what we have available to them to offer a variety of pathways, actually. I mean, it's still March, we're going all the way through
June 9th.
June 9th at the.
Well, and I would tell you, in previous districts where I've worked, we didn't even schedule the junior high students until April or May, even with this arrangement, because we have to wait until you filter down the high school. Here's one. Okay? Seniors need to have the most access to the electives and then so on and so forth. So when we get to an 8th grader that might want to take calculus or whatever, if there's no room, well, they still have a lot of time left. And so that's why you start where you start. And you get to junior high students, 99 times out of 100 is a moot point. Because they're not going for the numbers of things that seniors or juniors want. But that does factor into it, so, it will still be
I
plenty
mean,
of
you at
time.
least have an idea of what the seniors are gonna have, these students. There's no idea. seventh and eighth graders, right?
Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, they will have fewer choices.
But what choice? The Coursework can tell them.
I think the other point, I use a microphone, we don't have one, but, I think the bigger point to be considering is the fact that we want to go slow rather than go fast. The idea is to make sure that we're deliberate about our process rather than flying through and then realizing we have these missteps. And we recognize, I mean, in Ms. Escobar's previous district, they didn't register anybody and get them all completed until spring break, which ours was in April. You know, and that was for just their 10, 11, 12, before they had incoming ninth graders. So, I mean, it's not uncommon. I feel like we're actually doing a great job of getting this going in the right direction. We have a lot of people working in the same motion and direction to get this done, but do it well, right? This is our first time doing it. We want to make sure that we've considered all of these other pieces. Just like I brought Latin honors to you tonight with the delayed start. If we're going to do something different, we might as well open up all the avenues and see what we want to choose from. I mean, if this is the opportunity. I would love to see some seventh and eighth graders who take some foreign language. I would love to do that. But I also don't want to sign them up for foreign language if we're full already, you know? So I want to make sure that we're opening those pathways, but doing it in a way where we don't have to backtrack, if that makes sense.
That's kind of part of the reason why we said every 3 weeks, Dr. Spring and I will be meeting and looking at the numbers so we can start to see and then be in contact with Nick as we start to see more things open up. Like, okay, here's our pattern, our path with the world languages, so we can see that we're gonna have availability in German, or like.
So what I'm understanding is that if that there is availability, not that you're gonna be opening something up for them purposely for them, they should be doing it for them, but that's my personal opinion.
But we also have to have the staff to do it.
I get that, but I'm saying you're not gonna be creating something, you're just finding out what's left over, right?
We have some classes created for them, plus they already have the lessons they have.
But the majority of
But
it
it's
is
like
left over.
Yeah, we had a couple teachers create some classes for them. So that Survey of Technologies, they created a junior high version of that as well.
I think
So there were a couple classes like that our high school teachers created for the junior high as well.
I think the other piece to note is that they already have 7th and 8th grade allotments that are available, as you mentioned, and that they only get to take currently one of those. So now they'll have 2, plus any of these other offerings we can provide them.
I mean, that was the whole point of them being out there, that was one of the bonuses, right, that they were gonna have all these other opportunities.
Which is what we're going to do, yes.
Look forward to seeing it.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, it's a little bit after 9 o'clock. Let's take a recess until 9:15. Okay, moving on. Yeah, special ed report. Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions? Any questions? No, I have any. Okay, building report. Any questions? Okay, moving on. Report from the building and grounds committee.
Which is first, the front of the room first. Pictures? We get pictures up? There's not much to show these days, because everything's finished.
Don't touch the screen.
Don't touch the screen. I hope people at home get to see this, because it's. Here's the library. It now has a circulation desk, which isn't finished, but it looks really nice. And there's a desk like it over here, which is the circulation desk for the CSI classroom that's there. It's a small version of the same thing, same look. These books haven't been unpacked yet, but she has a desk and it looks really nice. This is some of the decorative pieces that are in the hallway for visual interest, correct? Up to this point, it's all, I'm not going to touch it, Rodney. It's all been one-dimensional. These are three-dimensional pieces there in the hallway. Add more visual interest to our hallway, right? Next page. Okay, now this is the staff lunchroom. One part of it, there's this area, another part, another seating area. And this is one bank of the two banks of the 15 microwaves that are in that teacher's lounge. And there's that commercial refrigerator in the middle there. It's very, this is my best favorite part, because these weren't here 2 weeks ago. These are the windows and doors facing north out of the new addition. Because you see Gale School, Rosehoben there. What the other one is it? Whatever. But so you walk into the new addition part, which they call Area A, correct? Yes. It's bright the whole time during the day. There's lots of lights in it too, but the windows at the end just bring in all this natural light. It's awesome. And I guess we passed the test to put tile down, because they put tile down like over half the classrooms now, and we didn't have to do any moisture mitigation. Very good, very good. Because all the center rooms are done, and all the rooms over on the west side are finished. So in terms of the flooring in this addition, it's only the rooms on the east side and then the hallways to be finished. So it's coming along really nicely. All the rooms are already painted. Okay, next. And here's some of the classrooms. They're all ready except for the coat molding, which is in this room but not in this one. Okay. Next one. This is in the addition. This isn't a classroom, this is that office room.
That's the middle classroom.
That is one of the middle, that's from the middle classrooms. So this is that hallway going the other direction. This is looking from the north to the south. Now, I just realized that my last visit there, these center rooms, they change colors as you go down the hall. They start with real light gray, then a medium gray, and then this real dark at the furthest end toward those windows that we just saw. Is that right, Brian? I just noticed that. It's nice. It has more visual interest in the hallway. It's not all the same as you go down the hall. These are the same style lights that we have in the common area, commons. This is lower. It's over the social area and the locker area in that new addition part. Where it gets wider, there's some seating there, some low lockers, and then these nice lights. And here, this is that same look going from the north, going south, on the other side of the middle classrooms. Is that right, Brian? And here are the same lockers I was referencing. So, and there are the lights coming down that hallway.
So there's this large open area that has lockers, some seating along the classrooms, and room for people to mill around. The last one? Oh, the Hague Performing Arts Center. Some very brave person must have walked up high to get these done, because you're up in the sound and light booth at the top where the spotlight will be someday, looking down at the stage. As you see, they poured the apron on the stage, so the stage permanently comes out further, because in the new Performing Arts Center, the pit will be in this area, glass enclosed area over here. So we see the scaffolding is up on both sides, and on the east side, they've already had all the steel work, the 50 feet of steel studs are all up on that whole wall. So it's coming along nicely, and we'll get those walls up and get more scaffolding, and then start working on all the things up above, which is significant, bringing in the sprinkler system and the HVAC system before the ceiling goes in. But it's coming along, and you can really see the shape of the seating area is quite apparent. I think there's another slide that shows that as well. There we go. The back area, here's this person who took the other picture from way up there. There's a series of spiral staircases that take you up there. That means you had to cross over those planks to get up there? Oosh. There's a main floor area, and then there's tiered seating along the back here, to get our 620 seats, approximately. And I believe those are all the slides we have tonight? But progress in the Performing Arts Center is very nice. And the classroom area should be done end of next month? Yeah. Sounds good.
Are we still on schedule that we received, what, a couple months ago? The construction schedule, is that timeline still accurate?
Yeah, for area A, it's pretty close, and then area J and auditorium, I think we're, depending on some lead times on some finishes, is what, may hold us up in final completion of the auditorium on hitting that date one way or another.
We have slides of it. The new band room, though, has its roof already installed. And they're probably 2/3 the way finished on the choir room.
Yeah, by the end of the week, they should be putting heat in there to start thawing out the ground, so we can then, I think the plan is by March 15th to pour the floor in that space. So that's coming along as well.
Very nice. And when do they start the brickwork on the outside?
Weather dependent, I'm gonna get it. You can start anytime, but, we want to be above freezing consistently, so I would probably say you're looking at, end of March, April would be probably the best time frame for that, depending on weather, so.
And thanks for getting those pictures on the outside. I'm glad people can see what it's going to look like.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Need a motion to consider approval of bids for various facility projects.
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Ham?
Okay, I'm actually gonna turn it over to Lee to talk about the specifics. You can do whatever you want.
So today I'm bringing, you should have the recommendation letter from us. So kind of a high-level summary, we did receive bids on the first for the 2022 facility improvements. There was 3 packages that we did not receive bids on, and we are about for rebid on the athletic flooring and I have had conversations with bidders, and we should be getting covered this time. I think there's a combination of some of the suppliers had sickness and didn't bid to the contractors, and that's something that time. They did submit bids the first time around. So athletic flooring and lockers will be forthcoming next time we meet. The remainder packages did there. I guess we didn't get flooring bids either, but the majority of the flooring in this package is patchwork around mechanical and casework. So it's kind of miscellaneous bids, and our anticipation is each building will be under the kind of bid threshold. So I'll handle that. I'll outside of this scope. The remainders all came in, and we are recommending, as scoping through them, almost all the bidders we've either worked through within this district, or I have had extensive working with them, and we are recommending waiving the bonds for those bidders. And then, as it sits right now, there's 3 alternate bids. Alternate 1 is stadium landscapes and seed. So that's redoing the landscaping and hillside on the stadium, facing the east. And that would go to a no-mow type grass material to help with maintenance.
So everybody's clear, we'll be moving that fence, current fence, we'll be moving that to the top so that we no longer have to mow that grass, that big steep hill there on the east side. So the fence will move up to the top, and then we'll put no-mow type stuff on that hill.
So this is the landscaping and seeding for that portion of that work. Alternate 2 was additional Whitehall finishes. So Whitehall lobby, as we walked through the bid, we're doing a lot of work in Whitehall on the gym side, and it was evident after walking through, there's some additional finishes that we're desiring to get pressed up to refresh that lobby and that hallway as we came in, along with the paints and doors and that type of stuff. And then the last one was Whitehall toilet partitions. So there's work in the locker rooms as part of this bid for like safety for the floor drains, and for repainting and new lockers. So when we started looking at that, there was the partition speeds and help. So who knows what that was as well. So we're recommending accepting all those alternates as well. And the letters laid out each bid and has bid summaries attached of all the bidders. So do you have any questions on those?
Another comment I'll make also on Whitehall, we will also be putting plywood from the floor up to the first purlin because of all the dents in the metal, and basically so that it looks, aesthetically looks better. We will also be fixing all that and painting. Basically, we're putting money into Whitehall that's been put off for years, putting it back to where it should have been years ago. We'll also be pouring new floors in there, athletic floors. We're also basically giving it an overhaul to Lee's point, the ceilings, the hallway, the locker rooms and all that. So Whitehall will be what you would expect it to be when we're done.
And I'll be bringing the lockers for the locker rooms and then the athletic flooring next time.
I hope you find a new locker company.
We did not allow Lion lockers to bid, so.
Yeah, it will be a new locker company.
I know it's not your fault, but we just like to hassle you about it.
Fair enough.
You told us to do it.
Looks like there's no more questions. Allison?
Ryan?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Turkey?
Aye.
Testown? Fester? Aye. Cervantes?
Aye.
Need a motion to consider approval of the junior senior high revised chiller refrigeration piping size increase.
Can I ask a question?
We have to get that.
We got a motion from
So moved.
I already moved.
Second.
It's fun job.
All right. So this one is, when we talked in December last, we had the revised chiller pricing change order. As we went back through, the manufacturer wouldn't want the piping that was proposed, so this is the revised change order for changing the piping from steel to stainless steel, which will be what the manufacturer for the chillers. So the difference between the last time and this time is an additional $41,150. So the new change order amount, which was never executed, the new change order amount totals $112,522.
So you want to explain to everybody why that happened?
So last time we talked, contractor found the best option, the most cost-effective option to pipe the chiller, which is carbon steel, at the different material prices. Copper's wasn't an option, based on the long lead time and the cost. As they went back to the manufacturer after our last board meeting and asked for some clarifications and details of how to do carbon steel, the manufacturer said that it was never tested in a chiller of this size and they would not want to use carbon steel for these chillers. So that was the feedback they got. And so if we installed them with carbon steel, we'd be voiding the warranty for the brand new chiller, which we would not recommend. Neither would the contractor install that unless he had basically a waiver condition as well. So it kind of led us down the path that the next best option was stainless steel, which is a material cost increase over carbon steel.
So if this is approved tonight, what's the timeline to get it installed?
They will have it installed and ready to go by the time we can flip over to chilled water with air conditioning, and they can do their startup. So they can't really test and start up the system until we're in the main for cooling, so that would be typically about April timeframe is when we see that, depending on the weather. So it will be, we've worked with them and checked material availability, and they have, stainless steel is not an issue. There's other, like up to iron pipe or iron pipes. So we should have that ready for the start of this cooling cycle. You know, the exact time frame is 2 weeks for it to be a stainless steel, and then the course is 4 to 6 weeks. So from approval, you're looking at 6 weeks roughly.
How many weeks from execution to installation?
2 weeks for delivery of material.
How many linear feet is this again?
We haven't figured out what
Where's
that 700 or
740?
something. I think it's 700 and 40 years. There's 4 different runs of pipe, and by the time it goes from the chiller pumps up to the wall, out, it's a lot more than you think.
I'm just disappointed that this comes to us this late in the project. And I've shared that with you that in design phase, it seems to me we should have known that instead of a 2 1/4 inch pipe or 2 1/2, we need 5 1/4 inch. And that's just my personal disappointment on how this process evolved and came to us.
Allison?
Phelps?
Aye.
Rodriguez? Aye. Schultz?
Aye.
Vestal? Aye. Fletcher? Aye. Cervantes? Aye. Wyatt?
Yes. Okay, next, motion to consider approval of junior, senior high area E tunnel repair.
So moved.
All right, so this is, for those familiar, as you enter from the parking lot to the band inquiry room, the existing band inquiry room, there's a set of double doors, and we call that area E, it's between area E and F, but it's the double doors right adjacent to the main parking lot. As we were doing demolition of the floor, the slab was kind of, had some cracks and subject to it, had the structural engineer come out and look between, it's actually an elevated tunnel right there that's the steam pipe serving, and that slab is in pretty rough shape to the point that it needs to be torn out and replaced underneath that vestibule from all the radiation over the years. So this is, we tried to get pricing from the masonry contractor that's doing this tunnel work on the crawl space, and they weren't comfortable with it because it was too expensive. So we got a concrete contractor, Pine, and that's on there. It's currently working the project to look at it, and based on the amount of shoreline that's needed to do it, the most cost effective route for the district is do a T&M not to exceed. So I'm bringing a T&M not to exceed number of 45,000 feet tonight. Should come in under that. But if we made them do a hard number, they would protect their, make sure they're covered, which is not, going to be the best for the district. So that's our recommendation, is to do a T&M not to exceed 45,000 to repair that tunnel slab. I don't think you've been in there, seen it, it's not rushed. Yeah. Like what I said, only tunnel section we just found that has been that bad, so that's good, but.
Did we bring it on ourselves by having salt, people coming in during winter there?
It's hard to tell, I mean, it is kind of right where that floor mat, depression is, so I'm sure that might have been part of it, salt over the years sitting there, and wetness continued to erode at that. But once it gets in the rebar, it will just fall and pop out. So I'm sure that may have had something to do with it. Or
Will they give us 62-year warranty on this one like we?
You won't be around morning, so.
You don't know that. You will. Allison?
Meredith?
Aye.
Cliffy?
Aye.
Montez?
Aye.
Backside? Hector? Ryan?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
Okay. Next, need a motion to consider approval of sale of Nielsen Elementary School.
So moved.
Second.
So we put the property out for bid with no minimum. We ultimately received one bid. You have that bid in front of you. It's for $1. And I'm glad Luke's here because he's always able to give our options. So if the board decides that that's not what they want to do, Luke, what are their options after this?
Effectively the same as last time. You are not, even though there was no minimum bid, you are not required to accept the high bid. You can reject all bids, in which case you would start the process over again. Another round of publication, another notice posted, either posted as with a minimum bid or without a minimum bid.
Or we could list it with a realtor, correct?
No, that's only if you had a minimum.
That's only if you had a
and it's-
minimum.
And it's not that.
So at this moment in time, there's the one bid for $1, and Mr. Benedict gave a very brief presentation because of the time constraints tonight for what he plans to do with it. And the benefits would be that it would go back on the property tax, well, not go back, it's never been on, go on the property tax roll. And, you know, there would be some use that would benefit community members. Obviously, the negative side is the selling price, so if you ultimately decide you want to do it, then we just have to get paperwork together, and then that's the next step. If you decide you don't want to do it, then we just need a direction of where you want to go after this.
Well, I see in the materials you supplied to us and that you spoke to at the bid opening, that your tenant would be Head Start. I am rather surprised that Head Start didn't bid on it themselves, because on 2 previous buildings that we've sold, they were bidders at on those 2 buildings, both the Cook building and the Allen Park building. So I'm surprised they didn't pursue it. And because then it would probably be, because their bids were considerably more than $1. And in both cases, the buildings were in no better shape than the Nielsen building.
I guess I should add one other thing. So I did add a letter to the packet from Steve Bowen from Russell, that if you want to further explore developing that property, we can have Steve come down and give a more detailed presentation next month. And talk about that, if that's a route you want to go. So I was remiss in not bringing that up earlier.
Explain to me that development there.
Yeah, so as Mr. Bauman's letter would say, says briefly, so the way it was explained to me was there are federal grants for basically taking over old government buildings. And a developer would essentially take the property that we wouldn't really, I mean, it would sell for $1 or for nothing. And as part of that agreement, they have to agree to develop the land within a certain time frame and turn that into, whether it be mixed use or single family dwellings or apartment buildings or whatever, the district would have some say, obviously, because they don't have to sell the property, on what that development may look like. And even though Churchill's not on the agenda for tonight, we had a similar conversation about Churchill. That we could, because the grant applies to both of them because they fit within they have to be at least 50 years old. And developers may see that as something attractive to do, and instead of keeping the building there, they may tear down part of it, build apartments, as I said, mixed use, homes, whatever, and that's but that we'd have to find a developer, and you have to find somebody who's interested in. But there is a developer, at least up in Chicago, that's doing their due diligence to at least see if it's possible.
Thoughts?
Have we talked about selling in time?
Good question.
Yeah, we have, at this level, we've never gotten it to the point where we severed the property or anything. That's definitely an option that I didn't bring up here tonight. That we could separate out the back, let's just say 10 acres, 8 acres, depends on how you want to parse it out. And we could absolutely do that. Farm ground would go, somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 an acre. That's what the selling price is right now. So that's definitely an option too if we want to explore it.
Do you think it'd be beneficial to list it for the realtor?
We'd have to put it out for bid at the minimum.
No, I know, I get that, we'd have to cover for that, is that
Yeah.
something that would be good?
Looking at Mr. Bentley's letter, if the improved facility had a value of $800,000, what would be our revenue on that amount on a yearly basis?
Roughly 12,500.
You're doing get 12,000 taxes every year.
For those listening out there, that's 800,000 divided by 3 divided by 100 times our tax rate of 4.75, which gets you $12,666. Okay, someone wants to check my math.
No. Well, that's a bigger number than the first time we did this. It's,
I like the use that it's gonna be used for. I think Head Start deserves something all in one building together and nice. It's gonna do the work, it'll do the work. And the ROE can't own a building, so for them to be able to rent something, be in a more school setting than downtown Main Street, be much better for the students, and we send our kids there. So, I don't like the price. Not everybody goes
Sorry, what?
So I'm just curious, that's what he says he's gonna
Right.
use the building for, but is he committed to that if he purchases it?
We could put deed restrictions on it to a certain degree, couldn't we not, Ruth?
You could. You could, there's some practical problems in doing that, so I guess the old, the farm boy in me says you either own ground or you don't, right? And once you don't own it, you basically lose control. So if you have a restrictive covenant or a restriction in the deed, the problem is how do you enforce it and what condition is the property in when you're getting it back? So you can think about it. I'm not a huge fan of them because the property could be encumbered by mortgages, it could be an estate you don't want to take it back. You're gonna have to argue over whatever those conditions are met or not. So it's a theoretical alternative, but there's some real practical problems to it.
I have something. Yes, please. Okay.
I've been a
If
part
you
of
want
it.
to stand up at the microphone so everybody can hear it.
I've been a partner with Head Start for going on 20 years. I'm the one that approached them about getting them out of that facility and putting it into
setting. The ROE program that I don't know a whole lot about, but I just hear that they need a home. I have other reasons that I could talk to you privately about why my interest is there, in working with these two groups, get the young and the kids in high school, et cetera. Again, I don't know all the dynamics of how it works. I can tell you, as a local developer, local employer, I'm opposed to a Chicago developer coming in here. You know my quality that I'm going to do for the commitment. And if I give you my commitment that we're going to go forward with this project, and Head Start, Mary has already called me today, have you heard? They've been gifted a project, a building over in Galesburg, that used to be the Lulac Club. Okay? And there was some ties to that they had to have 5 years before they worked with the developer and everything else. So that's what really started my conversation with them, because of 20 years ago when I rented this building to them, I didn't like the setting. And this is, I think it was Diane Rubino, and I ended up doing it. And 20 years later, I'm the one that's going to them saying, let's find you a better place to do this. So my commitment, I'd be more happy to sell back to you for $1. But I mean, and the reason I took the time to come and explain to you tonight is the $1. It is embarrassing. It is not a slap in your face. It's just the economics of how to get there to the other end for my end user, that I have to start with that. Now, I promise you that if you vote it down, we're still friends. I still got a tenant. I've got a 1.5 year lease on it. I'm fine. I'm the one that, after no interest was in this property, that for all these openings, that I thought to come and test the waters on it. I buy all my materials local. I support other local contractors. I'm not here with my hat in my hand. I want to explain to you why and how I came up with that unreasonable low number. And clarification in the paper there is 0, so I figured I gave you $1. No. Long story short, this is serious dollars. And for me to invest this kind of money in the community, it means I'm not going anywhere. My family's not going anywhere. We just got done with a $3 million project downtown in Galesburg. Local contractors, local everything. I've got my sight on a couple other projects. If I may add, I can't speak for Mary or any of the Head Start program, but that building was overwhelming to them. It was, and because of their class sizes and how many they need, and the mowing and everything else. And again, if we put solar on the back and we partnered legally, whatever we can do, I'm not opposed to it. I don't want to mow it. I don't want to pay to mow it. So I'm okay with doing something legally that you can separate and keep that back half. That part's a liability to me. So, and the cost of the power bill and the 2 years setting empty and on and on and on, I feel like, you can see, well over $150,000 in the last 2 years, just keeping it sitting idle. And, so, I have no problem if you say, you know what, I'm gonna reject that. I'm very okay with it. But it was more important to me to explain to you why and how I came up with $7 than it was just a ridiculous throw a number out to see if I won some free property. It's nice property, don't get me wrong. But, and I wouldn't be interested in looking at any covenants for future use. I can't guarantee that the ROE is going to sign a contract. I can't guarantee any of that. My wishes are for all that. I have a foundation that proves that it's for others. I just need the tools to get there. And I have all the financing set up with the local bank to do that. Ready? thank you. If you have any more questions.
I have one additional question. It's building on one thing that you said there. You would not be, if we were to move forward in a manner which we were able to separate the front part from the acreage, because we would like to get some money now rather than later out of the property. And hence we could move ahead and attempt to sell that back number of acres in an air amount that can be determined when a contract can be worked on. Would you be open to that?
I would, and I will tell you, I went to that avenue first before I put my offer in. I went to the Coursework that donated the land to the school, and went to them and asked them if they'd be interested in any of that to buy from me to add up my price, and they said absolutely not. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't if that comes forward. You know, they're of mindset, the idea of giving a gift back to her grandpa. So, and there's no bad blood there. She just is not gonna pay for something that she gives to the school. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't blame her. Yeah, no more than Carter's now, the return on investment is probably not very good anyway. But I'm not a farmer, and I don't know how it all works. I am a developer, I'm local, and I'm not going anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I think the first thing we need to do is determine whether or not we're going to accept the bid that we've received.
Correct. That's the motion on the table, to accept the bid as received.
If we wanted to separate, would you think that we would have to
We just, well, we have to talk to Luke about it.
do we put this off, so we have some discussion on it? Or do we-
We don't have to sell tonight.
No, you don't have to take any action tonight. If you're going to consider splitting the property, then effectively what you'd have to do is reject the bid, split the property, and then you'd be attempting to sell two separate pieces of property. So that's where the school code sale provisions just, they give you almost no flexibility. So you put it out to bid as one parcel. So you could certainly go through the, have it replatted into two parcels. You could attempt to sell the back acreage, the farm section, and simultaneously attempt to sell the front. But you're going through the same process, just on two separate parcels. So you have two notices, two bid packages.
Except the back property doesn't use up any utilities.
correct.
Right, my point is just in order to do it mechanically, you'd have to restart the process.
But I meant to add that the FDOR, no, I'm confused, ROE, was gonna be a partner with me on this project, a tenant. Their time frame needs to be starting construction soon because of when their leases are up. I have time for the head start, I don't have time for that, and I could lose that tenant if I don't go forward.
So your options are to accept or reject, and if we reject, we can enter into some other conversation about what to do, but for now, because we posted it as the entire property, we have to do one or the other, or taking it, that's essentially rejecting it.
Well, not really, because it puts us a month behind if we want to do something else.
Yes, that's fair. I will say this, I understand the optics of the low bid. I also know we've had it out there for several months and nobody else has offered anything.
It would be great to have head start in nicer space. There's no question. At this point, I would recommend that we turn it down and look to split off the two pieces and rebid both pieces separately. Someone else must have some thoughts on that.
Well, I think then we can do that when we're sitting on two properties, especially when we use that mine. You know, that's my own concern, that nobody wants farmland.
Well, if you do that, if you do what Maury's saying, you can still work with Mr. Benedict on the building, and then you would have the property behind, which he said he's not interested in having to maintain. And then it puts you in another spot to have to find a buyer situation for that land.
And I don't honestly know how long it would take, I've done it before, how long would it take to separate the two things?
It's gonna depend if you need a survey or not.
We have to get a survey, we have to go to the
But
zoning.
you'd have to have a new survey to set up the two separate properties.
Even after doing all that.
You would need a survey showing,
Just
not
as
a
survey.
survey of the property, but a survey showing the new tracks.
Showing where the parcels have been out.
Could have that done then.
That's not like tomorrow.
No, we have to have it done in a timely manner to advertise the purchase of such space.
Correct.
So we can come back to the something. It's not just to have the survey done, it's to have our activities done prior to the next meeting. Right?
That would be the goal, that would be the goal.
You have to go through the city for.
Everybody just told us that they're on contract, so he might not get $1 again on the Nelson building. And then we're sitting on Nelson and the farmland stuff.
Well, you still have, I mean, you could still sell them as one, but it would just be two separate parcels. So, you know, for example, when you build a house, you could have two lots that you,
Right.
so it wouldn't lock you into that. The other piece, though, that is in the mix, the reason you're able to discuss the planned use and the potential use is because you only have one bidder. If the board had two bidders, if you had a bid for $1 and a bid for $3, you either take the high price or you reject all bids. One of the absurdities of the school code is it doesn't allow you to consider anything but the price. So if you split it and you have multiple bids, you're not allowed to evaluate those bids on the planned use, only the price.
So should probably developer come in and bid on it and be on it.
Yes.
You have any thoughts?
I'm ready to go.
Allison?
Well, clear.
Second Maury's.
Oh, we're
But,
changing
yeah,
the-
well, no, the motion is, if you vote yes, you're voting to sell it at the price, just so everybody, there's so much conversation, I'll make sure everybody knows what they're voting. Yes means you want to sell it to Mr. Benedict for $1. No means you want to do something else.
I think there's more kind of discussion.
Rodney?
What we're discussing?
No, I'm with Maury's camp. I think we need to reject it and rethink this. I think we could work with Mr. Benedict, but I think we need to.
He wants it now, answer now or no answer.
No, you can't work with me.
Well, there's one other logjam, which is if you restart, you have the 3 weeks publication in there as well. So not only do you have to do the parcel split and then the city and or county zoning, you're gonna have to go through publication. I don't think you have enough weeks before your next board meeting.
So. So what you're saying is we reject it, we can't go to Mr. Benedict and say, hey, we're gonna parcel this off, you can have the building for $1 and we're gonna keep the land.
That's correct. You'd have to rebid it again and go through the process again. It is.
Makes no sense.
I completely agree, but I gotta tell you what it says, unfortunately.
option, have you ever that version? No.
The only method that a different arrangement might work, the municipal code allows more flexibility in disposing is maybe the wrong word, selling publicly owned real estate than the school code. So municipalities can consider development and potential use when they sell. So they're not where you're locked into the high bidder or reject all bids. Municipalities are not. So we have had districts that have entered into intergovernmental agreements with municipalities where you transfer the real estate to the municipality then sells under the municipal code. That's not gonna be doable overnight either, but that is an option potentially,
Well, Simon Trade, they do it in basketball all the time.
something like that.
Today's world, there's gotta be a way to make all this work. I'm not sure.
It's workable, but if you are selling it solely as the school district and you're not involving the city or another, a municipality to do it under the municipal code, you're locked into 3 consecutive weeks of publication and then either a sale by auction or sealed bid, at which you have to take the high price. There's nothing in the school code that allows you to consider use or development. I don't disagree with you at all on how frustrating it is, but that's the statute.
I'm gonna ask probably an odd question. Is there any way to do the bid, post the bid at the same time you're concurrently running the new survey to say like, we're selling the building and no less than 1 additional acre while we're going through the process, and we could just meet with people so that we could get this all done in 1 month? And we're being public about what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can, your notice, yes, I think you could make that happen. Your notice is gonna say, you're gonna have to attach some kind of GIS map or something with a rough outline, to be determined by survey. That's all gonna be in the contract terms that are, referenced in the notice of sale, but that could be done, I think.
You don't need to. I can probably find out very quickly how long that turnaround would be if we could table this for 5 minutes.
Well, I got a suggestion. Sir, if I owned it, then can I negotiate with the school board on my property?
There's no requirements.
So I'm gonna answer the question as if the school board, they're my clients, so I'm gonna answer the question as if they posed it.
There you go.
So that I'm not just taking, I don't wanna get the streams crossed here. If you sold it with a verbal agreement that either part of it's gonna be sold back to you, gifted back to you, transferred back to you, you've got a verbal agreement, which is not enforceable. So you can do that, but you're relying on the verbal agreement.
Mr. Benedict, are you willing to work with us in those regards?
That's why I came up with the suggestion. Yes, sir. Do you know how many acres you want?
I'd say it's at least 8.
I think there's 12 there total.
Well, any farmer I talk to said there's a point where the fences turn and all, again, the equipment's so large, I don't know whether it's one path maybe. Right up to the playground, to the street, I think should stay with the property.
Yeah, I'm just looking at taking that fence line.
Yeah?
Yeah, just square it all.
Yeah, but we're needing the part of the playground. For the-
Right,
Yeah.
Bigger than us now.
I haven't
You're looking at the
it.
east side.
I haven't looked at it other than that's a liability to me, I don't want it.
Just the east side.
Is there any road access to the farm ground other than through there's no secondary? So you're gonna have to leave 60 feet, either an easement or.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you do it, but yeah, you could get
Okay.
And if you want me to leave for your vote, I can do that.
No,
too.
it's open session.
I'm trying to be open and
Session.
honest with everybody, so. And again, if you say the dollar's ridiculous, I can't agree, I can't disagree. It's not, that's just no blur and everything else is rough and.
Once again, voting yes means to agree with the purchase price. Voting no means to object.
I was just gonna say, Robert's rules will call the point, we need to vote.
I believe everybody's ready?
Sharpie?
No.
Bestab?
No.
Ledger? Cervantes?
No.
Lyon?
Yes?
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
So yes, 3-4.
Okay. Now we need the direction to go from there.
So would you like me to post it with a minimum bid at the same time we're trying to parcel off the back of our land?
Thank
Make sure you.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes.
We can probably have, subdivision of the survey, probably less than a week.
Well, luckily I know an attorney that deals in this. and looking at it. So he can help us with the wording of the posting, and we can get a survey drawing pretty quickly. I'd say maybe by the end of the week.
What I can't tell you is any city, county zoning time.
Right, no, we'll have to go jump into that hit deep tomorrow, but
We can work through the notice piece if the survey can be done, and Friday we can talk about how that would need to be configured for that.
right, so do you just want to post one, or you want to try them both, or what?
I just posted one at this point.
Just the building? So what do you want a minimum price?
I'll leave it with it. Because if really, I'm happy to hear the price that he's offering to generate $12,000 in taxes.
So about 660.
Not anymore.
That's theoretical dollars. That's theoretical dollars.
Yeah.
There is another entity that's interested. I don't know that they are that interested in putting, they might bid $2. But, so,
That's an interesting issue, though. If we have it without a bid, and someone bids $1, someone bids $2, and we don't like what they plan to do with it, we still have to take it.
well,
We
just reject all
can't call
that.
bids then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing right now is we're going to post it, no minimum. We're going to post it for, try to get it done before next board meeting. We'll try. We'll talk to the city and county tomorrow about splitting off the two. That should be fairly straightforward. And then we'll work with Luke on typing up a notice. Does that work?
The notices run 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we really have to do it
Right now?
tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can't mess around. We'll do it. We'll do it. We're almost done.
Okay, so you have direction, we don't need to vote on that?
Yeah. We got direction, I'm ready to go.
All right, let's see, need a motion to consider approval of track resurfacing bid.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Matthews, do you wanna
Track.
give a high points to the track resurfacing bid? I can tell you it came in 12,000 under what we projected it was gonna be.
Don't you touch that.
When we say drives, I mean.
No.
Yeah, I mean, the
We were
big
told
price
the
is
one
what
we
we're
have
doing.
down, that we put down 10 years ago was lousy. 8 years. How is this better?
Well, the track that's out there is an eighth of an inch or less, and this will be a half-inch thick. So, I mean, just that is alone.
So how long should this last us?
Well, it'll last forever as long as we continue to stay on top of it. It's like doing a parking lot. You know,
You're always on top of it.
you gotta, well, they'll do a structural spray over the top of it every 6 to 7 years. And it just kind of keeps everything nice and tight, and you just kind of stay on top of that.
And that structural spray costs around about,
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard, I don't know what it is now in today's dollars, but, you know, usually, I don't know, $45,000, somewhere like that.
How often?
Well,
every 6 years.
Every 6 years, or it depends on how much track you get, you know, usage you get out of it, but yeah. And then if you just stay on top of that, the track should last forever, unless you have, you know, underneath. If the underneath starts to go on the asphalt, then you've got issues. But our asphalt, from when they looked at it, it's in good shape. So there's no cracks anywhere on it. It's just the material, it's latex, and it's just peeling off. We actually have to have some work done to it this spring, just so we can use it for our meets on the runways for long and triple jump, because it's just, some of the areas is peeling off.
So will they take that off?
Yeah,
and put a whole new?
they'll come in and peel it completely off, and then it'll be a polyurethane track, half-inch thick, all the way around. It'll be a charcoal gray with yellow exchange zones, because if we were gonna do it, we wanted to have something no one else has in the area, and no one else will have a track this color in this one. Augustana has something similar with blue and gold, but nobody will have anything like this.
Christopher Craig.
Yes, the color, the price was a little higher because of the color involved as opposed to just a black track. So, but at the end of the day, it wasn't blowing the budget out, we actually came in under budget.
Okay. Is there anything else we're doing while we're there? So we're doing the runways, the track, anything else we're?
Not right now, I mean, we want to do something with, we talked about doing the pits themselves, they're so large, we'd like to shrink them down, cut them in half, and have, get rid of the tarps that are on there and actually have nice,
Covers.
Covers with track surface on top, but I think that's a little, you know, we'll have to look at that a little bit further down the road.
Okay.
But this will take everything inside the fence.
So this will be for the next.
Yeah, so if it gets approved, I'll reach out to the company tomorrow so we can get on the schedule so that we know, when they'll be here to get it done.
23 tracks.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Allison?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Need a motion to consider approval of press policies.
So moved. Second.
We gonna read them all?
No.
No.
You guys can go on the agenda, they're about 50 pages long.
We spent a lot of time on that.
Couple hours.
High Point?
Almost all of it is
Legal updates. We didn't put in the stuff about dress code. We didn't put in the stuff about drug testing. Other than that, there was nothing, no policy was changed that was gonna really change any procedural thing we're doing at school. It was all just responding to legal.
We don't use coal tar.
And we don't use coal tar. Where's Brian? Oh, Brian didn't get to hear that part?
Usually cry.
Brian gives me a hard time.
Allison?
Fletcher. Fuentes.
Aye.
Lyon.
Yes.
Phelps.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Aye.
Prescott.
Okay, the 22-23 school calendar.
Because of the lateness of this, the calendar committee put this calendar together. It was sent out to all the buildings, received very positive feedback. And we're asking you to vote on it next month. If there's something in there that you'd like to see us look at, we can absolutely do that. Highlights of it starts mid-August. We put in longer breaks throughout the year. Election day is a mandatory day off, so that had to go back in. We get out for the end of the first semester, December 21st. And if all things go well weather-wise, we get out before Memorial Day and have graduation on Memorial Day weekend, and everything's great. As I said, I did not hear any negative feedback from staff. It was actually very collaboratively done, and the staff feedback was all good. Yes, of August, yes. Now that all buildings will be air conditioned, that should not be a problem. Once we get a stainless steel pipe, 741 feet of it, and we test and balance that thing, we're gonna have an air conditioned building this spring, so it's gonna be awesome. So we'll bring that back next month.
I think it's like good calendar. I need a motion to consider approval of trip requests.
So moved.
That's Mr. Matthews.
I believe that's the baseball trip.
Yeah, it's just a baseball trip to Omaha. It's one that they've done, they didn't do it last year because of COVID, but a couple of years they've done it about during the college world, or college baseball world series, they'll play games and stadiums and stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple other
It's all
ones
of
in
his
there.
trips, yeah.
Oh.
It's okay, yeah. Omaha's on there, yeah. It's all of their summer trips.
We have to get per board policy, if it's out of state or overnight thing.
Allison?
Yeah.
Yes.
Aye. Okay, motion to approve Chromebook quote.
So moved.
So every month it seems that I'm coming here to tell you that we've gotten more money through American Rescue Plan. E-Rate put out a call for proposals a couple months ago for an emergency connectivity fund grant that we were given, and that is for 2,000 Chromebooks and 150 iPads. This was very specific. It was part of E-Rate from American Rescue Plan dollars. So this is nothing to do with anything that we budgeted. This was an additional grant that we're receiving. So
This is what you have to buy with the money there's.
we have to purchase these. It was a very narrow, specific call for what we could
Where were
purchase.
the
We
iPads?
have to buy these with this
We
money.
use
that we're
iPads
giving
in
them.
early elementary.
We don't have to buy them with
Pre-K.
the money.
You can rent that backhoe that Nick was talking about, that big hole.
We can turn the money down.
Right, we could turn the money down, but
Do we have a use for them?
yes.
Back.
So we can rotate out some of our aging Chromebooks, and then we'll keep the others in stock for, we can rotate them out a year from now, Do we so. still have Chromebooks that aren't touchscreen and stuff like that? So, no, these are all touchscreen.
But do we still
Right,
have
we-
the?
we-
Oh, yeah.
oh, yeah.
So we can get rid of
We can
those,
cycle those out.
like, rather than wait? Yes. So, and the
It's
bids
a big
were
deal
on
for
the side.
kids having touch
It is,
screen.
it's a huge deal, local dollars.
Especially when your computer breaks and then you have to go to a non-touchscreen computer.
Right.
It's a day ruiner.
I just-
And Maura, you don't live with that.
You're right. I don't have a touchscreen.
We are so far through the Chromebooks.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad to understand.
Allison?
Yes.
Aye.
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 No.
Thank you.
But I do agree with the parents of the inheritance.
Okay, need a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between 205 and Knox Warren Special Education for access to special education services.
So moved.
Second.
The amount we're paying for PT and OT services, have we considered bringing that back in-house instead of buying those services?
Yes, we have. We don't know where we find the people. Because the people that work for Knox Warren aren't going to leave Knox Warren, and those are the people we know that do it. But yes, we've absolutely thought about it many times because it's a lot.
Can we hire those people?
No.
Not
You, I
getting paid.
mean, legally, yes. They're not going to be coming. I hope no one from Knox Warren listens to this. I'll see them tomorrow. We've asked. But if you are listening to this, we didn't ask. But yeah, we've asked, and they're not leaving Knox Warren.
Allison?
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Turkey?
Aye.
Tremendous?
Aye.
Metcalf?
Aye.
Fletcher?
Aye.
Ryan?
No,
Phelps?
Aye.
Motion to approve revised job descriptions.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Ham can probably do those revised job descriptions.
So we have a retirement of a longtime employee that will be occurring on July 15th. So it gave us an opportunity to look at some of the functions and re-piece together job descriptions so that people have things that were more congruent with other duties that they're having. So we're putting in front of you tonight for a position that would be for a registrar that would handle all of registration, all of student records, and it would be the same number of FTEs in July once this employee retires.
This employee that's retiring, what did you just say that was significant about that?
I had hired her to do some work on our preschool proposal when she was in high school. Now she's
And were you in high school also?
No. It's working for the school district.
Oh, you were already considered old at that time.
Now you're older.
Thank you.
This is Laura retired, that's.
Allison?
Turkey?
Aye.
Metcalf?
Aye.
Fletcher? Aye. Tremendous?
Aye.
Ryan?
Yes.
Phelps?
Aye.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Motion for the personnel report.
So moved.
Second.
Allison?
Metcalf?
Aye.
Fletcher? Aye. Tremendous?
Aye.
Ryan?
Yes.
Phelps?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Aye.
Aye. Grievance update.
We did get another grievance, but it was quickly settled. So that's great. And we're meeting with the union again on Wednesday and trying to resolve some other issues, but it's all been very amicable. So I feel like things are going well there. And then we got a FOIA last week. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's so long. I got a FOIA request from a parent here in town for all of our bonds. Errors and omissions policy, surety liability insurance policy, deputy care policy, risk management policy, crime board policy, general long-term bond for the school board, photocopy your school board general obligation bonds, and a lot of other things too.
What's the charge per page?
What is the charge per page?
Isn't most of that accessible online?
I think it's 10 cents, isn't it?
What?
10 cents.
Make it a buck.
It's gonna be a lot, I mean, a lot of paper. So Leanna Gale, a parent from here in town, has requested that, and we're working on it.
Okay. Almost done. Comments by board members. Member Metcalf.
So I had a chance to visit Mr. Grandma Churchill today, Miss Graves at Steele, and Miss Hutton at Lombard today. You know, I appreciated the time in all those buildings, got to see a lot of great things happening at all those buildings. Got a chance to talk about things that are needing some work. And you know, all those things collectively are really important to me as a board member. You know, if I don't know what isn't working, it's hard for me to be effective up here. And being able to engage those students and seeing how they're working with each other is really important too. So keep doing what you are doing, because you guys are laying the foundation for the district every single day, and putting all the practices that we're helping up here, putting into place, putting those things into practice down below. So appreciate what you're doing, keep working hard, and I love what I was seeing today. Thank you.
Members from this. Member Rodriguez.
No comment. I'll keep my quick. I also tours. I want to say thank you to all of you that showed up and I really appreciated it and enjoyed seeing the
Lori, take the mic.
Please don't.
He's got his list.
No, I have one thing, because those are topics preferred.
72 subparts.
No, a weekend ago, I was at the junior high play, at Churchill. And I thought the kids did a nice job of memorizing their lines. I also, this past weekend though, I also took advantage of another theatrical offering by our community. I went to see Death Trap that Prairie Players is putting on. And that little theater they put in was just so impressive. And until our Performing Arts Center gets built, it's too bad we just don't use their little space for our opportunities, because it really is a good place. I recommend it to everyone. So there's some future topics.
All I have to say is everybody who stayed here till 10:30 on Valentine's Day, thank you.
Hope the
And thank you
sofa's
to your
comfortable.
significant others. Future agenda items. Anybody?
Well, next month we have a solar update, correct? And there'll be one on Lincoln, and someone else needs to talk to us about what's happening in the Willard project, correct? I want some knowledge about it.
I'll do it, okay.
You'll find out and report to us.
I will get the information, but I'm not inviting you back,
Okay.
unless you make me.
No, we'll have an update. I would like a report. You know, I was going through the contract for some reason or another over the weekend, and there's all these differentials, and some of which we haven't started. I wonder if there's a plan on how we're going to integrate them into our 712 entity for next year, and just moving forward, how we're going to do that. So maybe that'd be part of some future agenda item. April will be fine. Does that make sense?
I'm writing notes. And we also have, we also owe you, all of you, a boundary report, a boundary study for the board policy. It is next month, it's the month after, so it's coming.
Okay. Next meeting is Monday, March 14th, 7 p.m. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.